Bloody awesome! Bloody awesome!
Hey, everybody, welcome to the Bloody Awesome Movie Podcast. This is a special episode. It's our 5th annual BAMPie Award. So, of course, with me from across the pond is Matt Hudson from whatIwatchtonight.co.uk. Matt, how you doing, sir?
Very good. I rushed down from Carfax Abbey to be here today, just for you, JB, and just for the listeners. It's the most prestigious night of the year. I've said that for the last few years, and nothing's going to make me change that. I know the Globes are coming up soon, but I mean
Right.
that
When we're
is small
recording this.
fry compared.
Yeah.
Exactly, it's people are waiting to see what we think and not what the Globes think. At least our categories make sense. But no, John, I'm been looking forward to this episode since we did it last year because I don't know. There's something fun about giving out awards, whether or not we actually have a statuette or not. But it's a nice way to celebrate the year that has just been. And also, I've got no idea about any of your choices, so the whole thing
It's
is going to be so ad hoc. Is great.
Well, and the fun thing about the show, we do the newest movie or the biggest release, and a lot of the best movies of the year don't get their own exclusive release window because they, kind of dump them all out in December, and we don't do multiple movies at a time. So there's a lot of these that we haven't necessarily done a full episode about. So, like, you might have heard us talk incessantly about Craven. Will Craven show up tonight anywhere? Who knows? It's possible.
No
It's
spoilers,
not
John.
likely. If you listen to our episode, you probably know it won't show up, but it definitely could. And then there are, of
That and
course,
Night
some of the
Swim.
movies. A Night Swim. We got Imaginary. The real dumping ground. I'm sure next week's episode, that movie will be talked about in the Bampies in the 6th annual Bampies. Um,
Ugh.
if you've listened to the Bampies before, you know we have a bunch of categories that we're going to get through. We're going to try to speed through the under the line categories, not rush through, but not talk quite as extensively. We've also added a few categories that we thought would be a little bit fun in a way of recognizing different types of performances or other areas. I want to give full shout out to the Critics Association of Central Florida, which I am a member of. A couple of these categories are borrowed from our awards there, but it's Matt and I's take on them, so it is different. It's not reflective of the results from the CACF, uh, even though it may be what I voted for. I honestly don't remember. I didn't do a one for one. Sometimes I
Same.
vote. Yeah, sometimes you vote knowing, like, if you vote for a movie that no one else saw, your vote's going into the wind, and it's no good.
Yes.
So, like, but here, though, because this is strictly my awards and Matt's award choices, there's no consensus needs to be met. This is just our personal pick for these categories, and it's a lot of fun because Matt and I we don't share this until this moment, so we get to find out how each other felt about certain films. There's sometimes overlap. A lot of times there isn't.
That's right.
Like, I mean, because we see a lot of movies in this process. So it's a lot of fun for us. So we won't beleaguer the point. We're going to go back and forth with categories. Matt, you're introducing the first category, which isn't necessarily an award, I guess, as much as it is like, oops.
Yeah, it's more of a roll your eyes, sit back and sigh that we missed this film this year. The first category is viewing regret. Not a film that we regret seeing, but the films that we regret that we weren't able to see from 2024. So like John said, we've got a 3, 2 and a 1 for every single category up until the final one. So let's get kicking off, JB. I won't labour the point too much on this. In third place for me was September 5. Was very much looking forward to seeing that, haven't had a chance. Second runner-up is Hard Truths, because I've heard the lead
Oh,
performance and that is very good. But the viewing regret for me, JB, which I was hoping to see before this award show, but haven't been able to, is one that I know you did see, and it's Nickel Boys. I have
oh,
heard nothing but good things about Nickel Boys. I've seen the hype ramping up on social media, mainly on Instagram, for this film, with obviously the awards season hitting now with the Globes tonight and ramping up to the Oscars. But yeah, Nickel Boys is the film I wanted to see, John, wasn't able to see, so that goes down as my regret of the year. But I know you saw that film, so you can probably sympathise
I'm
somewhat.
maybe comes up later. Maybe it doesn't. We'll have to wait and see. Um,
How about you, though?
that's the viewing regret are the ones basically that could have likely been on our awards had we got to see
Yes.
them and we didn't. So mine are going to be pretty big, and only one of the three I've really had a true chance to see and just haven't taken it. But the other two, it's like out of my control kind of thing. Queer, Baby Girl, And my number one viewing regret is The Brutalist. There's so many people talking about that as possible Oscar nominations. And obviously there's a lot of, I think it's got several Globes nominations.
Yeah.
And I hate being out of the conversation on it. I hate hearing, like, there's so many podcasts I listen to that are talking about it. It's on best of lists all over the place, and I haven't been able to see it. So it's definitely my regret. I'm looking forward. I think it's coming out kind of like limited release next weekend, and then a wider release to follow. And I'm hoping I can at least get to it before the awards actually hit for the other things. But I would have loved to have seen it for my FYC, but also for this. So if it was my favorite movie of the year, it could have had it there. I don't know that it's going to be, and I gotta admit, not looking forward to that runtime.
It's
But
a big runtime.
it's a big runtime. But I do want to see it, so I am. It is definitely a regret.
Nice. Good start. So that is our viewing regret. Like John said, it's not as much a category as much us extolling that we didn't get to see these films. So, John, let's move into the actual categories.
And then, so our first, I guess, as we're calling it, actual categories, these are movies we call most surprising, ones that maybe we had little hope for, we weren't really aware of, or maybe we were like not looking forward to watching at all. And it surprised us. It made us excited. So my three is The Last Stop at Yuma County, a movie I was barely aware of and then saw. I thought it was incredible. Abigail, goofy
Mm.
vampire ballerina movie. I'm like, this can't be that good. Loved it. Had a blast with that movie. Completely surprised. And then the biggest one, a remake. One that I just mentioned to you, Matt, that was in my top 20 because it's a Blumhouse movie, Speak No Evil. A
Oh,
film that I never would have thought I would love, but man, I liked the original is incredible. I admittedly the ending didn't sit well with me. It's not supposed to. It's not supposed to, but I think the changes they do to the American remake, James McAvoy is just absolutely incredible in this movie.
he's
Although
great.
I got to say, I thought the whole cast was really great in the remake. And the changes, to me, like, a lot of people don't like the changes, but to me, it's like, well, but whether you like them or not, it's one of those examples of a remake that justifies its existence because it didn't just do the same thing as the first movie. It did its own thing. And I do think it's trying to speak to American audiences a little bit more, because part of the challenge of that first movie is I don't buy that you would just sit there and take it at the end. And I know that's technically the theming, but it's hard as an American
You
culture. We like to
Americans.
believe we would fight back in any scenario, and that's what I think this movie did. I was just kind of floored by it. I was like completely captivated the whole time. So it was easy to put it as a surprise because I went in thinking, oh no, another American remake. Plus the trailer, just so many trailers, and they
It
showed
gave
so much in the trailer.
everything away.
They did. So I was stoked that I was really into the film. So speak no evil.
Yeah,
Matt,
no,
what are your sorry.
no, please, my friend. But that would be a feel bad film going forward. But the original, sorry. So my most surprising, John, at number 3 is Alien Romulus. I just didn't think we'd be seeing a very good Alien film for a long time, and we got a really good Alien film from Fede Alvarez. My second runner-up, or first runner-up, we never know which one it is, but number 2 is a film that was on my most anticipated list from last year, The First Omen. Because
Oh yeah.
I said then it's either going to be great, but it's probably going to be awful. I thought The First Omen was excellent, so it had to go in there as a surprise for me. But my winner, John, is a film which I genuinely had no interest in. Everybody else seemed to, but I didn't because I had never bought into the hype because I'd never bought
Oh
a ticket to the stage show, John, of
yeah. Okay.
Wicked.
Yeah,
I
I thought that
was,
was
you knew it was coming. I was so surprised by how into this I was. I've got, like you, my journey with musicals over the years has been an interesting one in that originally I'd kind of hold them at arm's length and I wasn't really into the idea of a musical. I'd turn my nose up. And then when I actually started to watch them, I realized, if the story's there, these are really good films, just like any other genre as well. And when I sat down to Wicked and the songs came on, it didn't bother me. I was so invested in the story of Elphaba and Glinda. I think the performances are great, but I was just surprised how into this I was. Everyone in my auditorium was locked in. There was applause at the end. You could hear tears at the end, probably for me a little bit as well, because it was just such a crescendo of a film that I couldn't believe it. I even posted on my Instagram that, oh man, 2 hours, 40 minutes, let's just get this done. And then the next slide was, actually, that was pretty damn excellent. So I'm happy to eat humble pie on this one, John. Wicked was my most surprising film of 2024.
That's not surprising that you would put that there, for sure, because and First Omen could have easily been on my list. In fact, I was thinking like some of the horror movies this year, Immaculate's another one that I would not have thought I would enjoy and then
Love
really
that.
enjoyed. So, it's wild how sometimes we're so wrong with our predictions, and other times the movie lives up to that hype. You're like, that looks terrible. Oh, it is. All right, great. Thanks, Night
Yeah.
Swim. Uh,
Oh, dude, the Blumhouse did. I know you have Speak No Evil, but
yeah,
their 2024, it may not appear on my list at all. But well, speaking of Blumhouse and tying that in quite nicely to our next category, which is most disappointing. So we don't like to necessarily revel in the worst films of the year or anything like that on the BAMP.
right.
We will give our honest reaction if you've heard our reviews over the year. But rather than saying worst film, we like to talk about the most disappointing. There's a films we went in with higher hopes for that we came out disappointed with at the end, John. So my number 3 was, it hurts to put this on the list, John. It was also in my most anticipated of last year. I've got to be true to you and myself, John. It's Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. Afterlife was so good. I
Yeah.
just really wanted to love Frozen Empire. I liked it, but it just didn't feel right to me. Secondly, another film that was on my most anticipated list. I am blasting through that list, and it was Gladiator 2. Again, it's not a bad film. It's just not Gladiator, and I struggled to see what the point of it all was. But my most disappointing, John, was Paddington in Peru, a film which I know you haven't seen yet, but you know it. The first 2 movies are so good, so charming, so magical, and this felt far more generic and uninspired, and just really lacked everything that made those 2 so good. And Paul King, who directed those, isn't involved. I think Dougal Wilson is the director here. And it just doesn't feel like those films. It just felt like it was kind of thrown out because, well, we have a contract. You don't want to lose the contract, so let's just make a Paddington film. I wanted to love it. My kid loved it,
That's disappointing.
but it wasn't for me. The Marmalade still looks pretty damn good though, but
And
yeah,
they had to
disappointing.
recast Sally Hawkins too, right? Like that's
They had
a
to,
major
yeah.
disappointment.
I can't.
She's so good.
I'm not going to try and remember. I can't remember the actress's name though. She's been in so many films, but who played Mrs. Brown or whomever. But yeah, she's good. She's fine in it. But Sally Hawkins, man, he gets a tall order. But yeah, that was my most disappointing, John.
And I do, before I give my 3, I want to really hit home that point that these aren't necessarily movies we didn't like. These are movies that we were disappointed by.
Yes.
And sometimes it's simply the hype level, which is why my number 3 uh, is Maxine, because my hype could not have been higher. And while I liked the movie, I was really disappointed by it. So it was easy to put that on this list because I'm like, man, I wanted to love that. I was hoping like, let's hit it out of the park like Pearl did. And it can't live up to Pearl. Argyle. Mostly because I love Sam Rockwell. And I was like, yes, Sam Rockwell spy movie. This is going to be incredible. And while there are some good moments, boy, was that movie just baffling by the end. But the easy big disappointment, and it probably shouldn't be, and maybe it's like shame on me at this point, but I want Robert Zemeckis to make good movies. And so when I saw here, I was so like, okay, maybe this will be great. I mean, you got Tom Hanks back, like it can't be as bad as Pinocchio, and it's not. But man, I was so shocked at what happens on that on the screen in that movie. There's so many weird decisions, things that are absolutely like baffling left and right, and you're like, come on, Zemeckis. Like, I've heard some people refer to him as a hack, and I've always pushed back, and it's like, well, they're making a strong case in the last 20 years. There's not many movies that he's done in recent times to say he's not. I don't think he was, but at some point, it does feel like maybe he lost whatever touch he
He's
had because
coasting.
it's just not clicking. But yeah, that's my most disappointed here.
Nice. Yeah, I can't say too much about those, John. Maxine, I get it though. I get it.
Now, this category is I don't know if we've ever discussed this, but the next category is best international film. For me, that's outside of the US, but for you, can US films count as international films? Like,
Well, I
could
can't,
beat the system?
strictly speaking, by your logic, yes, it could be. But I kind of, for me, is the obvious ones. Anything that's not in the English language,
Yeah,
but also like an Irish film for me would technically be an international film because Ireland isn't part. I'm not going to go into the whole political side of it. You guys know that. So there
because
are.
they're Oh,
Well, maybe there is,
I'm just
maybe there
wondering if
isn't.
that's going to be on your list.
I was
Um,
wondering maybe it might be on your list, John. But you
well,
start us off.
my number three international film, I'm Still Here, the Brazilian film that is a masterful, one of the best performances from Fernanda Torres in the film, just outstanding. All We Imagine is Light, a film that when I first saw, I liked a lot, but as I sat with it, it's an Indian film, but it was not selected by India for the Oscars, so it's not eligible for that award. But the more I sat with it and was thinking about it and like with the story and the message that it was conveying, I was just really taken by it. The end kind of shattered me also, even though it's not as devastating as some of the other films I saw internationally, but it was just really impactful. And my number one is Kneecap. Um,
I thought it would be.
now, the funny thing about Kneecap is I saw it at South by Southwest. It was the last movie I saw, and I literally had to run out of the theater, meet Big Tuna to get my suitcase, get into an Uber, which then got into a car accident, get from the car accident into a lift, get to the airport, get on my plane and fly out. So my initial reaction to the film was not as good
Screw
as
you.
my rewatch. I have since listened to their album Fine Art that came out like a month or two after the movie. The rewatch only cemented the film all the more for me, and it quickly, you know, became a favorite. Like where I've been trying to get people watching because it's in the States, it's on Netflix now. So I'm like, if you haven't seen Kneecap, check out Kneecap. It is there's a lot of it in English. A lot of it's in Irish, and of course, the big part about it. Anyone who's disputing whether it's a foreign language film or an international film, the movie is about exactly that: is keeping a language alive. So
Hmm.
it kind of fights for its right to be listed as a foreign language film. Um, and it's funny. It has so many old school elements. It reminds me a little bit of 8 Mile in the approach to like the musical biopic and the rap element of it. Um, but man, it's just a really really well made film and a great Michael Fassbender performance. Even though he is like not as vital to the film overall, but he's definitely the big actor in it. That's my big one, Kneecap. Matt,
Yeah.
what about you, sir?
I
International
thought
film.
there, I thought there'd be some Irish representation in there for you, JB. My number three, my second runner-up is Kneecap. For all the reasons you've just said, John.
Oh,
I think it's a wonderful film. I love how on the poster, I can't remember exactly what it says, but it pretty much says like British warning, Irish language throughout or something. So it's poking fun at us filthy Brits over here. But no, I thought it was very good. I thought the performance was great, the music was great, and yeah, Fassbender when he's in the film is just having a great time. For me, the second runner-up is a film called The Coffee Table. It's a Spanish language horror film, which is a horrific experience, but it's also a really well-made film. Not quite a chamber piece, it almost is, but it's such a well-made film that I had to go on there as number two. My number one, though, John, my best international film of 2024 is Exhumer, a Korean
ah,
horror film by Jang Jae-hyun, who does a great job of directing this mystery horror film, which is just dripping in traditional Korean folklore. I'm not going to pretend to have understood all of the nods to the folklore and all of the things that are happening. I had a little Google afterwards or even during it and understood what it all meant and it tied it all up together. But it's very creepy and atmospheric. There's some excellent visual imagery and some great performances, especially from Kim Go Yuan, who plays Hwarim, and Choi Min Sik as Kim. Really, really drive this film along. There's a great scene of this ritual dance about a third of the way through the film, maybe just past that, and it's so visually wonderful, and the way it's shot and edited is excellent. And I think it's about 2 hours 20 minutes long, so it did kind of worry me a little bit, thinking, oh man, not that it was an international film that's long. It was more that it's a horror film or mystery film, horror film that's long. Does it need to be? For me, it earned its runtime. It's really, really good. I'd recommend Exhumer to anyone who can see it. It's on Shudder. Don't worry about the subtitles, guys. We say that every year. Get past it. There's some really, really, really good films
mhm.
across the world if you just open yourselves up to those little subtitles and putting your phone down for a couple of hours. So, Exhumer, John. So, you've gone Ireland. I've gone Korea for best international film. Two very decent films there, I'd say.
And
Um,
horror movies showing up on your list, no surprise.
yeah, I mean that's me done for horror representation this year. Or is it? Well, John, this next category is one which is usually dominated by Jon Berk. It is best documentary feature, and I say that because if you're not aware or new to the show, John is excellent at absorbing documentaries throughout the year because John just loves good stories or bad ones sometimes. But
Yeah.
whereas I sometimes have to be pushed or coerced into watching them, and I don't know why, because in my head I see them as, well, it's TV and I don't watch TV because I'm an idiot. But I have watched a very good amount of documentaries this year, more than the 3 needed to qualify for this. I've watched about 9, and most of them are quite good. So I struggled a little bit with this, with my choices for this, only because, as I said, there were so many good ones that I didn't really want to leave too many out. So without any further, my first runner-up is one of the bigger ones that I saw, but it worked, and it was music by John Williams. I don't need to say anything else about that. It's music by John Williams. My first runner-up, John, is the one that I know you saw. And it's The Remarkable Life of Ibelin, which is a Netflix documentary about a young guy who had Duchenne, a condition which essentially causes your muscles to deteriorate, and it is incurable. And he sheltered himself from his family and lived his life online. And I think it was World of Warcraft, and
Yeah.
it's such an endearing, touching film. I don't want to say too much more. I'd rather you guys go out and watch it. It's on Netflix, but it's a very powerful film. I'll just say that. But speaking of which, my best documentary feature of the year, John, is a film which I was in tears within the first 2 minutes of watching, and it's Daughters. It's another Netflix documentary, but it's directed by Natalie Ray and Angela Patton. It's a documentary about these. It follows 4 kids, 4 daughters, funnily enough, who are preparing for a special event that happens annually. I think it's at different prisons, jails in the US, and it's called Date with Dad. And basically, incarcerated fathers get a chance to have a touch visit, they call it, with their daughters, where they have like a mini prom. They get, there's tables there, they get to have pictures taken, they have a dance. I think it's like 6 hours they get to spend with their daughter. And the lead up to that is, I think it's 10 weeks of fatherhood coaching, less sessions, where they have to almost like convince themselves what it is to be a dad, how much their daughters need them out there. They're in there, but the kids out there, man, they need them. And I teared up in minutes, John, and I never really stopped. It's sad, poignant, touching, it's heart-wrenching, but it's also strange because, these dudes, they are felons. And the film never really goes into say what they did, which is, I think, is vital. But we do learn about what stretches they're on and what stretches they're given, so we can kind of piece together. It's just a really well-made documentary about something I had no idea about. And obviously, as a father to a daughter, there was some of the coaching that was being said was hitting me hard. I couldn't relate to obviously being a felon, if I could be so bold, but
Thank goodness.
it's still like the idea of like your kid's there for you, and just seeing these kids seeing their dad sometimes for the first time was hard hitting stuff, and it's presented really well. So I think it's on Netflix again. Absolutely, definitely recommend checking it out. One of the women who directs it, Angela Patton, she actually created the Date with Dad scheme. So it's a really hands-on documentary or thing for her. So yeah, Daughters is my best documentary of the year. Now, John, I know you probably had a list longer than your arm to go through for yours, but what are your 3 choices?
My number 3 is No Other Land. It's a film that's extremely important now. It actually stopped filming just before the the Hamas takeover. So right before the war started, by coincidence. The film showcases Israeli soldiers basically taking over people's property, people's land. It's really powerful. It's very of the moment, and I think opens up the opportunity to see very real perspective of what's happening. It's a one of those documentaries where it doesn't feel like we should be getting to see what we're seeing. Like it's like a miracle that it exists, kind of thing. Next, one that I think is vital for anyone who maybe doesn't understand the trans community is Will and Harper. It's a Netflix documentary, Will Ferrell and I'm going to forget Harper's last name because I was not familiar with Harper before or after transition, because Harper is a writer on SNL through with Will Ferrell for a long time and other things, but often for me, I'm only aware of the face that's on the screen and
Yeah.
not the person behind it. So they go on a road trip. Harper transition tells Will, and Will's like, has some questions, and that's part of this kind of getting to know your friend again, and like learning how things have changed and how things are different and how things remain the same, and also observing other people's bigotry that happens along the journey. And how you react to it and how you respond to it. It was really powerful at times, and fun because they're comedy guys. Comedy people. And it's you can't help but if you like Will Ferrell, if you hate Will Ferrell, gonna hate the movie because he's like in it, like he's there. Um, and then my number one, you've mentioned it, The Remarkable Life of Evelyn. One thing that you didn't note, and it's completely fine, but I think it's worth noting, is parts of the documentary are using the World of Warcraft
Yeah.
images and icons and the characters. So they recreate, like a documentary does, but they recreate it using World of Warcraft. We go into the game and we get to see these characters kind of play out. And they use actual transcriptions of the conversations that were had in the game to
The game
recreate
logs,
those
yeah.
moments. And it's the way that's used is not only really cool in terms of storytelling, but it's also really eye-opening, I think, for the family who maybe didn't know about that part of their son's life. And I won't, again, much like Matt said, I don't want to spoil it, but it's if you skipped it, if you slept on it, and more, if you are a parent or a person who doesn't understand gaming or understand the
Communities.
how how real it can feel for the people doing it. I think a lot of things, oh, it's not real. It is. Those connections feel real, regardless of what you might consider real. But and from the perspective that this movie puts that idea in, it's so vital, I think, to just well, I cite this so many times, but Ebert's concept of the empathy machine, that films are a breeding ground to be empathetic. There's nothing, I think, more prevalent than both Will and Harper and The Remarkable Life of Evelyn, because you get to be there. You get to see what it's like to be in their shoes. And
Hmm.
if you are open to that, if you're receptive to that, it can enable you to actually care about maybe something you didn't care about before, or understand about something you didn't understand before. Even just the process of trying to understand or trying to care, these films are a great step in the right direction. So, same, No Other Land as well. I think all three of mine kind of play into that, and Daughters as well, because some people think, oh, you're a felon, you don't deserve to see your daughter. Well, that's also punishing the daughter, not just the
Yeah.
felon.
This documentary may change your mind. And it just on Iblin, my man, is again, I'm not going to say what happened, but they're talking about the community and they're talking about obviously the other people that Iblin was playing with. And then the camera cut to someone in real life. And I literally sat in my chair here and was like, you're kidding me. As in, like, they've actually gone out and sourced the
Yeah,
actual people and information. I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is excellently done.
it's such a well made documentary, but also just an incredible piece of storytelling. And there's some like not like it also doesn't paint him as some like perfect kid. Like it shows like no, he was a jerk at times. Like he was, just like anybody else. We have ups and downs, and I like that they didn't try to shy away from that. They really painted a real portrait of who he was
Yeah.
in his life, both in person and in the game. Um, all right, that's best documentary. Now we got to shift style wise. We're going to best animated feature.
Big
Uh,
one.
It's a big one this year. And also not. I think I caught every major animated film that came out. My number three or second runner up is Look Back. Japanese animated film. Very barely qualifies as a feature. It's like 60 minutes, I think. It
Hmm.
just hits the number. But wow, what a impactful movie! Just absolutely devastating at times, but also another one's eye opening in a lot of ways. Um, then my first runner up or whatever, I've never understood how to do that. Wild Robot. Wild Robot, incredibly looking, really great voice performances, and I think a very touching story. I've heard some people say that it's like, oh, it's such a kid movie. I'm like, are you kidding? It's such a parent movie. To me, that movie is
Yeah.
like for the parents. But The movie that shocked me the most in this category this year that I almost didn't even get to was Flow. Flow is a masterpiece. It is silent film. It's fun. Like I was on the edge of my seats with tension at times, and then I was shattered like 3 times in this movie. They just made me cry so much. Absolutely love Flow. It's one I will definitely own. I like the art style too. It's such a unique looking movie. It's just everything about Flow works in the best way. And I did lose my cat this year. I had to put my cat down, and so a movie about a cat just really connected instantly. I was just like, yeah, I'm in with this cat. And I love that they're not anthropomorphized, that they're animals. Like they're smart and they do maybe a few things that we're giving some leeway to. Maybe they wouldn't quite do what they're doing, but they don't speak. And I think that's really just shows the power of storytelling that can be done visually. So Flow is my best animated feature of the year. Matt, I'm very curious. I'm not sure what made your list. I know you've seen a lot.
I have, and if anyone's watching on video, you may have recognised the reaction there. This has never happened before on the Bloody Awesome Movie Podcast, the BAMPies, but you'll see what I'm on about shortly. So my second runner-up was, I really like Transformers 1. I really like Inside Out 2 for what it's worth. But my second runner-up was Look Back. It's really good
Oh,
Japanese film, which didn't just about made feature, for real, because you mentioned
I
it a
know what's
couple of weeks
happening now.
back. Yeah, you know what's happening. You mentioned it a
Yeah,
couple of weeks back on our media consumption, and I was making notes as you did it, and I remember saying I'm going to check it out, and I did because it's an hour long. This is I could watch on my lunch
it's
break.
in our
And
wheelhouse. Yeah,
dude, what a film! What a
so
film!
good.
It's another example of a great international film, which is leagues better than most of the films I've seen all year. But um, my runner-up for the year, John. People call it a kids' film, but it's more of a parents' film.
Oh,
It's the older robot. Man.
this is
And
crazy.
in any other year, this one probably would have been number one
Yeah,
because this is
easily.
such a poignant film, which for me came out of nowhere. Because when I saw the posters, I thought it does look a pretty kiddie film, like the look of it, the style, but like thematically, it's all about bringing people together in a world which is doing everything to pull people apart. And it's just powered by these brilliant performances, excellent animation, the music is sumptuous. It's insanely good. And then I watched a film which was my winner, John, which had none of the vocal aspect of it, but it had everything else I've just said, and it's a film called Flow.
This is wild.
This is
Yeah, we've not had this sync up exactly. I don't think ever.
genuinely. So the videos, go back and watch. You'll see my head snap back and my hands go into my head when you said it. But yeah, I don't want to labour the point then because my reaction is pretty much the same as yours. I've never owned a cat, but the way that it's a Latvian Belgian production, the way it makes you care so much about this cat. I saw a letterboxed user, and I don't always like these one-line reviews. I think sometimes they annoy me, but this one said, "I would suck the ocean dry with a straw for that cat," and I'm on board. Really was on
I like
board,
that.
and you've got the cat, you've got the I can't remember. It begins with C. The other
Capybara.
capybara. That's it. A
It's my daughter's
capybara.
favorite animal. Her car is decked out with capybara stickers.
No
She has
way.
a capybara seatbelt thing. Like when I saw Flo, I was like, Taylor, you're gonna love
You got to
this
see
movie
this.
when you can watch it because holy
Has she seen
cow, it's
it?
got a capybara. She has not yet. And she also likes animated stuff. So I didn't have a way to show her the screener. So I'm gonna as soon as I can buy it, I'm buying it, and then
Yeah.
she'll watch it. But
She'll love it, I think. And it's not a
oh yeah,
long film. It's don't be put off by the fact that there's no vocals, there's no voices in it, because the music does one hell of a job of propelling this thing forward, as does the gorgeous animation style. But the story, like you said, these aren't anthropomorphized animals. They're just animals who learn to coexist because of what's going on around them. And can they? Will they? Should they? Do they? It's such a tender film, which I really hope more and more people see. I'm so excited to see how this does at the second biggest award show of the year, the Oscars, behind this. Because if it's up to me, these three films would be in the nominations at least. I don't know what the odds are so far, but yeah, John, I don't think that's ever happened in BAMPies history. I don't think it has when it
that's wild.
actually synced up, and it's in animated, which is the craziest thing. Didn't see that coming at all.
Yeah, fun, but maybe it could speak to the quality of animated films this year that like there's a clear three standouts, or it's just a weird coincidence that these three hit our sensibilities the most. Because I liked Inside Out 2 a lot.
Mhm.
Transformers 1 was a huge that could have been on my surprise list because I
Yeah,
definitely was like not excited about that movie. And then I was like, oh, it's pretty great.
it's fun.
All right. Well, animated
Right.
feature. Wow, that was fun. It's fun that
Yeah.
they synced up exact.
Never had that. Maybe if going forward we'll sync up on every category. The
That'd be
next
weird.
category, I'd be interested if we do because this is one of our new ones. This is the one of the ones that we added for this year and going forward we'll be including, and that is best stunts, best stunt work in a film from 2024. A couple of weeks ago we were having a aligned debate about there should be casting, there should be stunts awards, there should be awards for all these kind of things in the kind of major runners like the Oscars. Why aren't we recognizing stunts? And then John said one day, well, why don't we do it? You know, rather than giving the big talk, why don't we do it? So we actually let's do it then in that case. So for the first ever time, we're going to be awarding a BAMPie for stunts. And I'm going to go right in with my second runner up was the stunt work on Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. I think that was just a really good film in general, but unsurprisingly, very good action, very well choreographed, put together. My first runner up is Dune Part 2. I think the stunt work on that is excellent, but it's almost meant to be that the inaugural winner of best stunts for me is a film about stunt work, and that is The Fall Guy. The stunt work by Logan Halliday, Ben Jenkins, Troy Brown is fantastic, and David Leitch, as most of us know, was a former stuntman who directed this film, so it's almost a labour of love for him as well. But just throughout, you've got a guy doing a 150-foot fall. You've got somebody who was set on fire many times, somebody who was hit by a car multiple times, cannon rolls, barrel rolls. You've got the 225-foot jump, which is kind of like the big set piece towards the end. And that's just some of them. I mean, the film starts with a big old stunt, and it never kind of really stops. So it was hard not to have The Fall Guy is as my number one for best stunts. Now, I haven't picked it because it's a film about stunts. It just so happened that for a film about stunts, they managed to absolutely nail them. Now, does it help her that it had Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt in? Absolutely not. But when it comes to the stunt work, yeah, I think it was just a perfect showcase of what a good stunt looks like, what a bad stunt, how it goes wrong, what can it mean, but also how much work goes into these. Because how many times have you and I, John, sat at a film and kind of gasped at a stunt, whether it is a truck being flipped or someone being set on fire, and you're so in the moment you kind of forget, oh damn, somebody has just been set on fire there. Yes, it's all done generally under strict controlled environments, but it's still happening. All of these 225-foot jumps are still happening. So we felt it right to one of them. And for me, The Fall Guy was the film that of last year which got it right the most. So that's my first ever best stunts BAMPie winner, John.
All right. Well, my second runner up for best stunts is Dev Patel's Monkey Man. Which I got to see at South by Southwest, and here I met Dev Patel, kind of,
Yeah.
and I got to hear him talk about all of the crazy stunts and how he like broke his wrist and kept like going, and all the crazy things they did to make that movie. And I thought some of the action sequences were really, really cool. The stunts are a lot more like hand to hand combat, but very impactful. My number two, or I guess number two, but first runner up. Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, because George Miller, man, he just does stuff
He
that
does it.
shouldn't be possible, and that movie is not seen enough from based on box office. I don't know if people have been watching it since it's been out on streaming, because I think it's on Netflix now. I know it was on HBO at one point.
Yeah.
um I really like Furiosa a whole lot. It's not as good as Fury Road, but it's still really great, and the stuff they do in it is incredible. And Matt, we did sync up with The Fall Guy, because that is my number one movie, the best stunts. And it's not because it's about stuntmen, but the fact that it's about stuntmen, just I mean, it's there. It has it. It's literally was made to try to push the recognition for the stuntman. And I mean, Gosling is so funny, but there's some incredible stunts in the film. I watched tons of featurettes. I listened to Leach because I was also saw that at South by, and Leach was there and the whole
Oh,
cast was there. Um I waited 4 hours to get to see that, but
So would
nevertheless,
I.
I got in, and it was a really cool experience. And it's hard to not be aware of all the work that went into those stunts, and uh, it should be recognized. I mean, stuntmen have even more. There's a lot of stuntmen who die we don't hear about. It's not talked about enough when someone dies to make a movie, and um, and not from a. I mean, it's always an accident, but not like the Rust situation where like something went way wrong, but just
Yeah.
they know getting into this vehicle, if something doesn't go exactly right, they may not walk away from that accident, and yet they do it. I mean, they deserve more than an award, but they at least deserve the recognition of the award. So we're doing our very small part, but the Fall Guy easily win this year.
Yeah, big respect to all the stunt men and stunt women out there. Thank you very much for your service.
All right, so with the idea of stunts, we got to talk about how they look on screen, and that comes down to best cinematography. We need good looking movies. This one is always a hard challenge because a lot of movies look incredible,
Yeah.
but I think I felt pretty confident with my number one. But my uh, second runner up is a documentary, and it's a nature documentary. But sometimes they
It
just look
counts.
gorgeous. Billy and Molly, an otter love story. It is just gorgeous. There's like some cinematography where you're just like, how do they get that shot? And there's you just have all these incredible cute shots. It's a very good documentary. I think it's far superior to the My Octopus Teacher from a few years ago, where I just felt like that man had a really unhealthy love of that octopus, and I'm using love with some implications.
Yeah. Was
Billy
a
and Molly, he's not. He just it's like a father and a kid relationship, and it felt less gross than the octopus one did to me. But also found the cinematography just to be outstanding.
nice.
Nickel Boys is my first runner up. Nickel Boys has a very unique cinematography style in that it is a perspective, it's a first person point of view. Unlike Hardcore Henry, it's not obnoxious or infuriating that it's that way. It's actually done with some very interesting storytelling mechanisms, and it's used to push the narrative rather than just be a gimmick. It is still a gimmick, it's undeniable. It's something that's not the norm, but it is definitely worth noting. Gorgeous movie, but the one that beat it, and I just don't know how you can do anything other than this movie this year, is Nosferatu. Robert Eggers' use of shadow, especially the lens. I should actually know the cinematographer's name, and I don't. I'm so sorry. I'm so bad at that part of it.
Oh,
But
it's Yanni. Oh, yeah, I
um,
can't remember.
I'm pulling it up. It's Jaron Blaschke. I'm sure I
Yeah,
said
that's
that
who he's worked
completely
with in all
correct.
of his films. Yeah.
Yeah, yes. The dude's been a major part of Eggers' filmography because all of Eggers' movies look incredible. This one, I think, stands out. There's such unique camera movement. There's this eerie kind of we're there, but we're like levitating kind of feel at times. And the man, the use of shadow in Nosferatu is just outstanding. I've read that they had a special lens created to make the lighting look the way it does, and that they dropped all these different colors to like just let the blue and the make it feel black and white, even though it's not black and white. And man, that was, and I've only seen Nosferatu on my TV. Now I do have
Yeah.
a decent TV. It's not a masterclass TV, but I still was just like immediately like, wow, this movie looks incredible. And while some people haven't liked Nosferatu, I think that's the one consensus is everyone's like, well, it looks incredible. Like you can't deny
Yeah.
the look of the film. The film. So easy for me. Number one, Nosferatu. Matt, what's your best cinematography picks?
That's a hell of a winner because that's also my second runner up is Nosferatu.
Oh,
It,
wow.
I mean, like you, I struggled with this list because I mean I'm happy with my three. Any given day, you can maybe move them around a little bit and be like, yeah, these are three fantastic looking films. Nosferatu was just a gorgeous, gorgeous film, but the look of this film was outstanding. However, my first runner up went to The Brutalist, which was the cinematography by Lowell Crawley, I believe. The cinematography in that film is just outstanding. Like from the opening shot, like the opening one all the way through to the very end, and how they use Vista Vision, which is like a technique which hasn't been used for, I mean, really for 70, 80 years. shot on 70mm as well. The way they managed to make this such a sharp, clear image, but at the same time, it felt like it wasn't of this time. And the big, wide, expansive, epic scope of the film really, really benefited from Crawley's work. But the number one film of the year for me, John, is 2 for 2 now in this franchise. Dune Part 2, Greg Fraser. It, even now, I remember seeing that film on the big screen and just being awed by it. Like the grounded way that Fraser captures scenes. And I heard an interview with him where he said that very thing. He says, if you've got, this is a big story, it's out of this world, but if you've got the camera kind of zipping in and out all the time and stuff like that, you don't believe it. So he found a way to make this story feel as grounded as possible in the way he framed the characters and against such big landscapes. And it's one of the key reasons why I enjoyed the film so much, because of how it looked. And when they went to Guy Eddie Prime and they had that black and white imagery, which I'm looking at and I'm reading up about it. So it's the use of infrared black and white, which, like you said, it's something which just cuts certain colours out, which gives you this really deep, rich black and white monochrome tone, which then in turn made Austin Butler and characters akin to him look absolutely menacing. But yeah, it's just a big, bold, expansive, emphatic, impressive, another incredible looking film from Greg Fraser. But alongside Denis Villeneuve, these guys can make an incredible looking film. And Villeneuve has made a lot of incredible looking films. You look at something like Blade Runner, Oscar winning cinematography for Blade Runner 2049. I mean, I don't know who's going to win the big one this year. I think maybe The Brutalist, but Greg Fraser, I had to shout him out at least because his work on Doom Part 2 is outstanding.
Very good. And definitely, I don't think I think about that scene enough, but that black and white sequence in that film is incredible. Like, I love that whole sequence. So good call.
Yeah, man. So let's move on to our next one, John. The next category, which caused me no end of headaches, and it is best score, the best original score. I know John may have a different take on this, but I do listen out for the music in films, and I think it's the Star Wars fan of me. I'm just tuned into listening to music. But like John as well, I also like music, and when something clicks, it clicks. But there was a few scores this year I loved. I had 6. I told John this off air. I had 6 up until this morning, which I knew what my number one was, I think, but I had 4 or 5 like jostling to get in. But I am happy with my 3 because I went back through my reviews and had a look to see which ones I praised the score. And the second runner up is Immaculate, the score by Will Bates.
Wow.
I praised the score in my review for that. It's just a very odd, unnerving score, which is what I said in my review. I noted it. It was very unnerving because the film itself was a big surprise. Like you mentioned up top, I thought Immaculate was great. But the music, I really noticed it, from the more upbeat use of, I say upbeat, but use of something like Carol of the Bells, which wasn't a Will Bates, obviously, composition, but the way he weaved it in was great, to his own score when it got down to the more gothic bones of it. It was really, really well done. The first runner-up, which nearly took top spot, John, is Chris Bauer's work on The Wild Robot. I think this is a delicious score. And again, watch the film sold me as it was, but the score, like any good score did, just elevated everything for me. But the winner for me, though, John, was Daniel Blumberg for The Brutalist. I thought this was a very stark and imaginative score. It's utilizes a wide range of instruments to capture what is a wide range of feelings and emotions throughout this film. And it's pretty eclectic as well. It's not, the film is big. It's 3.5 hours long, or even longer, 3 hours, 40 something minutes. And it covers a pretty heavy subject, but it isn't just one type of music. You get somber, you get jazz, you get quiet piano pieces to the more contemporary sounding finales. It's just an excellent score. And the way it works with the diegetic sound of the film, it's all about construction as well, is done so masterfully. I wouldn't be surprised if this sweeps a lot of best score awards from here on out, because this is the big one, but the other ones. So yeah, Daniel Blumberg's work on The Brutalist edged it for me, JB. But what about yourself? I know you've got a keen ear for music, though.
Well, as much as I like music, scores have always been a real challenge for me because when they work really well, I often don't notice them because it's just part of the experience.
Mhm.
What like I love John Williams scores, but his are so vital to the movies that I often just I'm like I know they're there, but I'm not thinking about them. I'm just thinking about the movie because it
Well, they're
it
more
adds so
themes
much.
and motifs as well, aren't they? Rather than like
Right.
a body.
But sometimes they do stand out, and sometimes that's a bad thing, and other times it's a good thing. The three I picked this year do stand out. My second runner up is Inside Out 2, which might be a cheat because it's definitely borrowing from the first film a lot, but I love the music in
Yeah.
both of the Inside Out films, and so it was just easy to it popped right up. I'm like, yeah, I love that score. I hum that score. Like it's one of the few that I'm like walking around, it's just like in my head, like maybe that's what's playing up here. Um, my first runner-up is Conclave. Watching that
Oh
film, I was
yes.
immediately taken by the score. I was just like, man, this score adds so much to the tension and the feeling of the film. I couldn't not put it on my list. But my number one, and these guys are two composers that I often like just vibe with, and it's Atticus Ross and Trent Reznor. Challenger score is insanely good. It's almost too much. But it's like, so is that movie. That movie is doing so much, and it fits. And like, could there be a more energetic score than the Challenger score? It's just like, like just hear it. It makes me want to play tennis because I'm like, I don't know if tennis is as exciting as that score, but man, that score made tennis super exciting. Um, Absolutely love it. I like them a lot. They work with Fincher so much; it's hard for me not
Yeah.
to often go with them. They've done tons of scores since Fincher, but like that was when I first became aware, and I remember just being kind of blown away because we grew up in the '90s. Nine
Yep.
Inch Nails was very aware, and like I didn't love Nine Inch
But
Nails, I
that
didn't
guy.
dislike Nine Inch Nails, but I was he became like I'm like that guy's doing scores,
Yeah.
and then you're like oh that guy's like he's doing scores, like there's something unique about them, and I'm really into them. Challengers, easy pick for me. Like I don't even think I had to think about it. I was like Challengers. That score has not left my brain since I saw that movie. So there you go.
That was one of my auxiliary picks. I had that Conclave, funny enough, Alien Romulus, Young Woman in the Sea, and Blink Twice. I actually lied. I had 8 choices. To that didn't get it, and I was listening to the soundtracks, and because Conclave, dude, that's one hell of a soundtrack. So
It
I
is.
mean, I don't want to say not interchangeable because I've picked my 3, but I really struggle because there are so many good scores this year, Jake.
And I haven't seen The Brutalist, so I have no input on that score yet. But one day, I hope to see it. All right, folks. This category is really got to explain. It's most feel bad. Now, these are not movies that are bad. These are movies that made us feel like sad or angry or disappointed or maybe just dead inside because of the nature of the film. In some ways, that's a compliment. It might not always feel that way, but like, and some people don't like to watch movies that make them feel bad afterwards. But I tend to. I tend to be really connected to films that make me feel. Period. So these are movies that made me feel bad. Runner up is an animated film called Memoir of a Snail. If you, it's literally, I mean, there could not be a movie that is trying to make you feel sad. Or it is like,
It
hey,
works.
you want to be devastated? Well, we're going to give you a series of things that get progressively worse. Every time you think it couldn't get worse, it's going to get worse, and
Yeah.
it kind of gives you some catharsis at the end, but still, ultimately, it's like, yeah, but. Eh. Um, Civil War, the Alex Garland film. Impossible not to like just leave you numb. It's too close to the fear that a lot of people have of what could be. It's absolutely just scary. And as a journalist, there's a moment in the film that is just There's actually several moments that are unforgettable. And when I walked out, I was just like, I don't know if I can say I like this movie because I am just emotionally drained. And final is one that Matt, I know you haven't seen because you mentioned it earlier. Hard Truths, the
Oh.
Mike Lee film. Um, it's such a challenging film to watch. The performances are a lot of the characters are purposefully not likable, and so you're trying to
Mm.
like relate, and then you're like, oh, but then somehow at the end you're like, nope, I feel for that person despite frequently being angry or frustrated with them. It's impossible not to feel for them, and that's a big part of the movie. And it's also oddly funny. It's such a weird thing, but like, yeah, it's impossible to walk away from it and not just be like, That was a lot. That was a whole lot of an experience. Hard Truths is my most feel bad movie of 2024. Matt, what about you, sir? What are your most feel bads?
I got to see that film, man. Second runner-up for me is Terrifier 3. Really enjoyed the film, but it's a funny one because I enjoyed it, but you still come out of it thinking, "God, that's some heavy stuff, man. That's a lot of blood, guts, viscera, and everything in between as well." But I still really enjoyed it. First runner-up, similarly, Civil War. I loved Civil War. I think if we did an award for screenplay, Civil War would be probably winning it, or very much up there in the conversation for me. I think Civil War was great. Again, all the reasons you said, John. But my most feel bad is a film I've already mentioned this year, John. It's The Coffee Table. I'm not going to dwell on this. Just go and watch it, guys. It's on Shudder, I think. Here it is. Just watch it. It's only about an hour and 20 minutes, maybe. Just watch it. It is one of the most devastating films I've probably ever seen because of the way it's handled, and it's as much. They call it a black comedy as well. I'm like, is it? Is it? I mean, there's some parts in it which you can kind of look at and you laugh nervously, but yeah, The Coffee Table. Don't be put off by the admittedly awful title. That is the whole point. The whole point of the title is misleading. The beginning, the first sequence is fun. It's funny because of the interaction between these people and a coffee table salesman. But then it is the most feel bad thing I've seen in years, John. Last year was When Evil Lurks for both of us. This is on that level for me. So, yeah, most feel bad was the coffee. Have you seen The Coffee Table, John?
I have not. No, sir.
It's not.
Partly because
It's not one I
I've heard.
recommend.
Yeah, it's like I'm
Well,
like I don't know if I need to.
well, I
It's
would
on the watch
recommend,
list,
but I
but
can't. I don't know if I can.
I get it. I get it. I totally understand.
Well, let's switch up, John. Let's do it. Let's do a
Flip it.
180 from feel bad to the films that made us feel good. Similarly to the most feel bad, these are the films that we came out of feeling good. We're not ascribing this to our best films of the year. It's just, man, did we come out of the spring in our step having watched these three films. So for me, John, I didn't come out of anywhere to see this film. I saw it on Disney Plus, but it was Young Woman and the Sea is my second runner-up. Really uplifting tale of adversity against the odds. About a young woman who swims the English Channel after being told in a very male-dominated landscape that you can't do that. So a really good film as well when the score was great. My first runner-up is Inside Out 2. I just felt good. I didn't say at some points during it. Some points I get really anxious watching it, but eventually with the messages and the themes and the Pixar-iness came through towards the end for me, and I just felt good. It hit me by the end. But my winner, John, of most feel good, the film that I came out with the most skip in my step, I felt like gravity had been defied. Wicked. Man, did I
Wow.
feel good coming out of that film. I had the biggest smile on my face. I was jumping for joy. I was pink and green forever. I'm an Elphaba and Galinda stan now. My kid is. She loves that film, but I just felt so good. It just made me feel good. Like I mentioned, the crescendo when we get to the end of that film, the way that they plot this thing out. So for those who have seen the stage show, I imagine you're waiting for this moment. You're waiting for this big song to come on. For someone like me who has a passing knowledge of it, I'm thinking, where's that song that I've heard about? And then the way they use it is such an explosion towards the end. I just felt on top of the world at the end of this, John. And it went hand in hand with it being my most surprising because I was surprised. I felt good. I thought it was great. And as we mentioned last week, it's one of my 5 anticipated films of 2025 now, Wicked for Good, based on how much I enjoyed Wicked and how good I felt having watched it. So, John, they are my 3 feel goods. What made you feel good this year, John, at the cinema or at home?
Well, my second runner-up is Thelma. Thelma is
Mm.
a movie with June Squibb. There's parts that will make you feel bad, but at the end, I was just so like moved by the overall story. I thought it was a lot of fun. It was kind of an unexpected film. I wasn't really ready for. I think not a lot of people saw Thelma, and you should. It's a blast. It's like, what if we make a Mission Impossible movie that is like a person riding in like a motorized scooter instead of a car. Like we film it like a Mission Impossible movie, and there's just a bunch of stuff like that. It's funny. It's upsetting again at times, but then like I think the overall ending just leaves you feeling good, and hopeful. Um, this movie, I guess this could be debated, but Challengers is my first runner up.
Okay.
I because the end, I'm with Zendaya. Everyone's like, "Come on!" I'm like, "Yeah, exactly." It's like it builds, it crescendos, it just hits, and you got that score just going, going, going.
Good for her.
I was in that film that whole time, just like hooked. Again, some bad things happen. There's some questionable things, but the way it ends, everyone's on a up, everyone's on a high, and it just like you walk out with just that energy. Um, but my most feel good overall was one that I feel like not enough people have been praising, and it's Saturday Night, the movie
Okay.
that is about the first episode of Saturday Night Live. I found the movie. I mean, I bought the first season of Saturday Night Live on digital after watching this movie because I was so.
Wow.
I'm like, oh, it's so crazy! Like it's there's so much history there. I thought the pacing of the film. Reitman gets a lot of love and hate, and I really think Saturday Night is just a really fun experience. I was so hooked into it. And obviously, there's a lot of conceits to make it work as a film, but I love the style of this. Like, you have 90 minutes, essentially real time countdown until it goes, and then uh, there's just so many performances that I thought were great, and just seeing these portrayals of people who you're familiar with, but with these young actors. I just had a blast with Saturday Night, and I really was kind of awed by it. So it was easy to say I felt good. It was probably my favorite comedy of the year. I just was really, really into it and liked it a whole lot. So most feel good Saturday night.
I dig it. When I watched that film, when the film ended, I was actually waiting for the show to go on. I was like, oh, it's
Yeah.
finished. I thought we were going to watch the first ever SNL, but no, I did enjoy Saturday Night as well. So good choice, John.
All right. This is the next category is another new category. And it's called Best Hybrid. And what we mean by that is um there's a lot of incredible performances that are not on screen. Like you don't see the actor doing it, or at least you don't see their actual visage, right? You see maybe a motion capture visage, or you see a drawing of them instead. And so we wanted to acknowledge those performances. They are technically eligible for the acting awards, but rarely, especially the Oscars, rarely honor such a thing. The biggest, I think, grievance of all would be Andy Serkis for his performances as Gollum or King Kong, or to me, the one that he
Caesar, yeah.
deserved to win it for was Caesar in the Planet of
Yeah.
the Apes movies. We did have a Planet of the Apes film this year, so maybe it shows up, maybe it doesn't. Um, all of mine happen to be those voice performances. So
Okay.
Best hybrid. My first runner up, or sorry, second runner up. I'll get there. Maya Hawke for Inside Out 2 as Anxiety. I thought she was incredible. I've liked Maya in a lot of stuff, but man, I think her as Anxiety, the way you hear the anxiety in her voice. It's so important to that character and how. I mean, God, it's talk about being seen. Like I'm just like that's my head. Everything she's saying is what's in here, like all the time. Um, then for my first runner-up, I went Sarah Snook for the memoir of a snail. I was really impressed with her voice performance. She has a strong challenge to make you connect to a character who's basically like Eeyore. If Eeyore like was just the centerpiece of the story, it's like what if everything bad could happen to me? And she has to still sound whimsical and hopeful at times, and yet like the worst stuff in the world has happened to this character. Um, and I just thought the performance was really great. But hands down, easy winner is Lupita Nyong'o in Wild Robot. Her voice acting is incredible, carries that movie. Which is again, there's other performances in that movie that I love. Matt Berry as the beaver is incredible. Bill Nighy as the duck. I just was like, oh, Bill
Oh,
Nighy just doing the work still. Like the guy is just
Pedro
incredible
Pascal was
always.
the fox.
And then Pedro Pascal
I
as the
had
fox,
no
who is
idea.
I mean, he's so incredible, generally speaking, but yeah, as the Fox. But then, with all of that said, Lupita is the heart and soul of that film, and it comes out, and it's incredible. And a robot, someone who's emotionless, and yet is kind of like grappling with this idea of emotion. Just awesome performance. I loved it. Easy to put her at my number one. So, best hybrid award, first time ever. Lupita Nyong'o, you are our winner, or my winner. Sorry, I don't know what Matt's winner is. I'm guessing. Uh, but Matt, what about you?
Awesome choices, John. I've gone. Mine is a little bit of a mix. My second runner-up is Peter Dinklage for Doctor Dillamond in
Oh,
Wicked, because a goat professor. It's enough said. But I just think that the emotion he got in his voice was, for a very small role, was so well done. I really did think that Dr. Dillamond added an awful lot to such a huge film. And also the scenes with Dr. Dillamond brought the film back down to earth a little bit. It wasn't defying gravity then. It was defying the laws of the town, apparently, but with animal professors. But it slowed things down a bit. It felt more human despite him being a goat. And I really appreciated that. And a lot of that was down to Dinklage's voice work. At my first runner-up, you mentioned apes, and I had to go with Kevin Durand, who is Proximus in
I
the
considered that.
I actually, what's the Planet of the Apes film called? The Kingdom? No,
Kingdom.
it was Kingdom of the
Oh,
Planet of the Apes.
yeah, it's
Yeah, Rise, Dawn,
yeah.
War, Kingdom. Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we had to think. Hey, we've been doing the show for years, and we still forget
I like
titles.
that movie. It's just like it is. It's. I can't believe that was this year. It feels like I saw that forever ago.
For real, okay. So I thought his performance as Proximus was big, really big performance, really menacing performance. Similarly to when with Kobo in the original films. But yeah, Proximus, Kevin Durand, and the winner for me. Well, John's already crowned Lupita Nyong'o as our best first ever hybrid performance, so I'm going to have to pick her now. But I already picked her anyway
Okay.
for Lupita Nyong'o for her performance as Roz. Again, not to sound like that guy, but for the reasons you said, John. There's no facial acting here. You can't even get away with that. It's a robot. So everything is fully led by Lupita Nyong'o's voice, and there's such emotion drawn from her voice. How she starts off a little bit more stoic, very much. I've just come out of the box, and I'm here to serve a purpose. To the very end, where she's grown into the character that she's the journey takes her on within the film. It's incredible to hear. And Lupita Nyong'o is one of the finest actors working anyway. I always love when I see her name on the call sheet or on the cast sheet. I think she's incredible. I read that she injured her voice and got a polyp on her throat during recording because she
man.
went like so hard during this, and she had to rest up for like 3 months. And it's funny because I don't know if those 3 months coincided with when she filmed A Quiet Place day one, because she didn't say anything in that film. So this year we have a Lupita film where she says nothing apart from about pizza, to this film where she really leads it. And like you said, John, there's big performances and big voices throughout, but Lupita Nyong'o just absolutely carried this admittedly excellent film, elevated with a brilliant voice performance. And it's not something which, I know she was Maz Kanata in The Force Awakens, but that was mocap. Voice acting is something which I believe is fairly new to her, but she absolutely nailed it. So yeah, you were bang on, John. Lupita Nyong'o is our first ever winner for the best hybrid performance on the BAMPies.
Yep. I thought so. So good. I'm glad it worked out that I made that prediction.
We've been doing this for long enough. John knows. Let's move on to another one of our new categories, John. It's another one that we lobbied for internally on our own show the other week, and it was best cast. You know, we always talk about, oh, what a great cast that was, what a great collective of characters, but nobody ever really, other than, obviously the Globes do, I think, and a few others, but we thought, well, why don't we recognise the best ensembles this year? So, John, without any further, before we lead into what is my inaugural best cast winner, my second runner-up is His Three Daughters, a film which I know you saw very recently, but
Recently.
Carrie Coon, Natasha
Incredible.
Lyonne, and Elizabeth Olsen, just those three together, before the father comes in, just those three, excellent. Again, the film worked for me. I wanted it to work that bit more, but those three performances, ooh, and I don't know. I wonder if John has more to add on that film as we go through the episode. If not, read John's review. But my first runner-up is The Brutalist. I think the cast throughout is insanely good. Adrian Brody, Felicity Jones, Guy Pearce, just as a starter for 10, all deliver outstanding performances, and then you add in the secondary and the tertiary performances, just creates this massive film which is anchored by these incredible performances. But for the first ever best cast winner for me, John, it was almost a no-brainer having seen the film, but I'm going to give it to Conclave. Ralph Fiennes,
Nice.
Stanley
Oh, yeah.
Tucci, John Lithgow, Sergio Castellito, Lucian Samati, Isabella Rossellini all deliver top-tier performances individually and collectively when they're together. By themselves or in the quieter performances, they're great, but put them all together, Ooh, and in a film which is heavy on dialogue, on dialogue, on low on, I know, but spark, exciting instant moments to get the crowd going. It's not, which is fine for me, by the way, film wise. To have these great actors on their A game was such a joy, facing off against each other. And I mean, Ray Fiennes is, and obviously getting a lot of praise for his work this year, but Tucci, Lithgow, Rossellini, and Etau are fantastic. So as a collective, the Conclave cast wins it for me. I thought they were outstanding, but I don't want to say our winner though. So John, what are your choices for best cast this year?
So my second runner-up, probably no surprise given my most feel good, but Saturday Night. I think a show about an ensemble cast has a great ensemble
Good shout.
cast. I mean, there are some very clear winners. The name is just Gabriel LaBelle is the breakout to me this year.
Mhm.
I loved him in The Fablemans, but man, Saturday Night, and he's in Snack Shack from this year.
Yes.
Just an incredible actor, but that's not the only one. I mean, the guy, I don't even know all the names of the people in it, but I just remember like watching and I'm like, who's that person? That's Chevy Chase. I like the guy playing Chevy Chase. Oh, look, there's J.K. Simmons showing up and whipping out his junk for 5 seconds.
Strong.
Um,
Yeah.
and then, oh man, I'm going to forget her name right now, but I know her
The
name. She's so
comedian.
great.
I know who you mean.
Um, she's in Bodies, 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 and Shiva Baby, and um, oh man, and why can't I think of her name?
I can see her face. I can see her
Yeah,
eyebrows.
yeah, I know her any other time, but now that I need it, it's not going to come to me. But it's just such a great cast.
I'll get
This
it
is
for
my
you.
runner-up, so I shouldn't be dwelling on it that hard, anyways. But my second, my first runner-up, sorry, my second pick,
Rachel Sennett.
Ghostlight. Rachel, what? Sennett, Rachel Sennett. Ghostlight is my pick for number two.
Ooh.
One, because the three leads are actual family members in real life, which I think is just such a cool detail that
Same.
they all deserve recognition. But then when you get into the theater company, everybody in the theater company has their importance. DeLeon, I think I can't think of her first name, but she's
Dolly Leon, yeah.
uh, yeah, she's my first awareness of her was Triangle of Sadness, and now I'm just like, I want her in everything. She's
Yeah.
just so great. She's funny and like also has so much emotion. She's just outstanding. I don't know why I wasn't aware of her before, but the whole family though, the theater troupe, everybody in Ghostlight, I think is just exceptional. The story they're telling is so powerful and moving. Just love that. And then that's why my number one pick though, which easily I could swap any of these, to be honest. I love these three all. It's not Conclave, man, which is a really great shout though. I actually don't know why Conclave didn't pop in my head because these other three movies pushed it aside. It's Sing Sing. Um,
Oh,
because how can you watch that movie and not just be like, everybody in this cast deserves major props because most of them are not quote unquote professional actors and they are doing tremendous work. I mean, most of the people in the inmate section that are doing the performances are former inmates who did this program and are getting to act. And this is a true labor of love for all of them. And I don't remember the exact details, but the way that everyone got paid basically the same, and
yeah.
that's crazy because of how that doesn't usually work that way. But it's a true like everybody put everything into it, so everybody gets a piece, and that's just outstanding. And I mean, maybe is the embodiment of what this award is. It's like a group of people working together to make a great product that has a really powerful message. Sing Sing is my best cast.
Yeah. Fantastic shout there, JB.
And again, Conclave, excellent pick too. Like that cast is crazy, and they all they all get like the best monologues ever. Like every time you're like, there can't possibly be another good monologue. They're like, wait, here's another good
Hold
monologue, and
my
it's just insane.
hold my
Yeah,
font.
yeah, exactly. Hold my grail. So the next category is our final new category. And this is our collective performance. This is actors who showed up in multiple films this year, multiple roles. And while they may not stand out in an individual role, they deserve some recognition for all the great work that they're doing. And the funny thing is, I guess I'll wait. My second runner up is one of the movies I don't even like on the list of his performances, but he's the best part of it, and it's Dan Stevens is my second runner up,
Ooh.
because Dan Stevens was in Godzilla. what the heck is the movie even called? Godzilla Times Calling? I don't remember. The New Empire. He's in Abigail, which I earlier mentioned as a surprise, and then he's in Cuckoo, which I also really liked, although not everybody did. Um, I think he's like easily some of the best parts of all three of those films. He's by far the best part of Godzilla X Kong.
Yes.
He's the one having the most fun with that movie,
The
at least,
dentist.
and he's the animal dentist. Second runner up, first runner up, Adria Arjona, who is the breakout performance really is Hitman. She shows up in Hitman. She's outstanding. I was not familiar with her. She's in a bunch of stuff, but I was not familiar with her. Then I go and see Zoe Kravitz's debut film Blink Twice, and she's incredible in Blink Twice. I think she's not the highlight of that movie, but she is a great, she's again, this is a collective performance. And then right towards the end of the year, I got to see Los Freakis, which she is outstanding in. And I was like, okay, I have not really seen much of her prior to, or if I had, I was not aware of her. And then this year it's like, boom, boom, boom. Here are three epic performances. You're almost probably wondering, how is she not number one? And she easily could have been, but I had to go with my boy. And I only saw two of his three movies from this year, but I had to go with Nicholas Hoult. Nicholas Hoult is my winner for the collective performance. But I'm sorry, there's four movies for him this year. I've only seen three of them. So yes, he's in Nosferatu. Obviously, you could give him a nod there. Then you're like, did you see Clint Eastwood's probably last movie, Juror Number Two? Because wow, Holt's a powerhouse in that movie. But the one that really puts him over the edge, the one that makes him the winner for me, is the Garfield movie, where he plays John. Now that part's a joke,
God.
except it's true. He does, but that's not why he's my pick. That's just a weird curveball. The movie I missed that I really want to see, and I've heard he's incredible in, is The Order. I could not get easy access to it. I was not willing to pay $20 to watch it. It's everything I've heard about it. Just is going to cement this as a performance for me. But Nosferatu, Juror Number Two, I was just like, man, he's doing the work this year because these two performances are outstanding. And then he did Garfield, a movie I completely forgot it happened this year. But it did. It was one of those. I literally didn't even consider it for the animated category. Just remembered that it was eligible technically, but no. But yeah, Nicholas Holt's my collective performance. Matt, what about you, sir? What are your three?
A fine selection there, Jonathan Burke. My second runner-up, sorry, is Dan Stevens. I think he's partly because I just love Abigail, the film, but he's great in that. He's the only redeemable part of Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire, and he's really good as Mr. Koenig in Cuckoo as well. So, one for me, one blast of a film, one very decent film in Cuckoo, and then a fun performance at worst in Godzilla X Kong. My first runner-up, John, is Margaret Qualley, who's in Drive Away Dolls,
Yeah,
Kinds of Kindness, and The Substance. Her star is rising very, very quickly. I know she's got 4 films, including Happy Gilmore 2, on the horizon in post-production. So, yeah, John, yeah, you'll
I
be
didn't know
there
she was
for
in
day
that.
one. Yeah, I don't care for that
I
film,
love Happy
but
Gilmore, but I don't know how excited I am for the sequel
well, she's in the next Linklater film, Blue Moon, so
in that.
that's a win. But Drive Away Dolls was fine. Kinds of Kindness was pretty good, and The Substance was fantastic. But she's really good in everything I've seen her in, so I had to put her as number 2. But she couldn't displace number 1 for me, though, Jonathan Burke. And the winner for me of Best Collective Performance is Willem Dafoe. Kinds of Kindness,
Yeah,
Saturday Night, Beetlejuice, and Nosferatu in the same year.
yeah,
Come on.
yeah,
And he is eminently watchable in every single one of them. Like Beetlejuice and Saturday Night, they're not the biggest roles, but you love seeing Willem Dafoe in them, especially Saturday Night is this very menacing, slightly sleazy TV exec. Nosferatu, fantastic as basically Van Helsing. And again, Kinds of Kindness wasn't my favourite film of the year, but everyone in it is delivering decent performances. But when you put them all together, I think that's a very, very strong foursome. And yeah, Willem Dafoe was the winner for me, John. But there was a lot of people like Fred Hetchinger, who was, you mentioned Thelmo's in that, Gladiator 2, The Pavements, a couple of other things as well. He
and
had a really
Craven.
strong. And I don't want to mention that, John. Come on. And in Craven, and he was in another film as well. So, he had a banger of a year. But no, yeah, for me, JB, Willem Dafoe was the winner for me.
He's in Nickel Boys is the other big one he's in. Fred Heckinger.
I have not. Okay, that would be why
Yeah.
I hadn't. I couldn't think about that one then. So, so that was best collective performance. Now let's move on. Now we're now getting into the the big awards, if you will. Like these are the ones that people get excited for, and it is the performances, and then we're going to move on to director and going to reveal our 5 best pictures leading up to our number 1. But let's start then, John, with best supporting actress. This was a tough category. This was a stacked category. I think we've said it before on the show that for the last few years, the actress categories, supporting and lead, have been just full of quality performances, and this year was no different. So for me, oh, did I go back and forward on some of these, John? But my second runner-up, again, I just mentioned, it was Margaret Qualley as Sue in The
Oh, nice.
Substance. Fantastic in that film. My first runner-up was Felicity Jones as Ursabet
See.
in The Brutalist. Now, she was nearly number 1 because I think she is devastatingly good in that film. She's really good in most things, Felicity Jones, but she's so good in this film. She gets a couple of moments to really shine. And there's one where I watched and I thought, I was like, that's it, the winner for me. But I couldn't look past my winner, John, which I think may not come as a surprise to the like film fans out there, but it might do for some. The best supporting actress for me this year was Zoe Saldana in Amelia Perez. Why did she beat the devastatingly powerful performance of Felicity Jones? Because I was really surprised by Zoe Saldana. That's why, mainly. Because she does a little bit of everything: singing, dancing, actions, all the emotion that the film called for. But she had this ferocious authenticity to her, which I did not know she had. And that's not to put down her performances as Gamora or in the Avatar films. But for me, this is her best performance by a country mile. And it was so satisfying seeing her pull this out. She is so compelling to watch in Amelia Perez. And the film itself is, I think John and myself had a better time with most in it. And a lot of that for me was down to Saldana's work. So Felicity Jones is probably more baity, if you want to use that term, like Oscar baity, because it's more showy. But then Zoe Saldana, she's doing a bit of everything in here, and I was so surprised by her. So she is my best supporting actress for the year, John. How about yourself?
Well, my second runner-up is going to I think the only love for this movie I've given is Ariana Grande in Wicked. Uh,
Mm,
as Glinda at first.
Galinda.
But she is she's so funny. Her performance just really stood out. The thing is, everyone's giving her like this, oh, I guess she can act. But my daughter loved Victorious. And so I watched her as when she was like starting out. When she became a pop star, I was like, that's the girl from that show that Taylor
Yeah.
watched. And so I wasn't as surprised because I thought she was funny on that show. So I was like, oh, yeah, no. But I really thought she was able to like, stand toe to toe with Arrivo, and that's not easy to do because Arrivo
No.
is an incredible actress. So I thought she was just kind of floored me that she was that good. So easy to give her that not second runner up. First runner up is Danielle Deadweiler in Piano Lesson.
Oh.
Just a devastatingly good performance. So many great scenes. Just epic. And my winner for the best supporting actress is also Zoe Saldana, who blew me away. I remember the opening musical number. I was just like, what? Like, I've liked her in everything I've seen her in. This, again, like you said, is just, this is her going, yeah, I'm a serious actress. Please pay attention to me. And it's just like, she can do it all. She literally can. Like I think this movie, she does it all. I don't think there's anything left on the table. She's like, you want me to sing? You want me to dance? You want me to like make a dramatic monologue? Do you want me to like be angry and fierce? I can do everything, and she does. And she's also like just this. The movie is very well produced, and there's some really cool stylistic elements to the musical numbers, and she still shines through all of that stuff. She is, to me, like it almost feels like category fraud that she is running for supporting, because it's like,
Mhm.
we start with you. It's kind of your, like, it's not your story, but we only
But
get to know the story because of you. So like, it's hard to say, but I understand why she's not the lead. It definitely locks her into the opportunity to win, though, and I would love to
yeah,
see her win this all the way across the board. I think this movie is underappreciated, but you know, I get it. And it doesn't help that Wicked came out because Wicked's like that's the musical people are going to talk about. Amelia
Hmm.
Perez is going to be kind of like lost in the Netflix ether. But yeah, that's my we synced up on our best supporting actress. So good call. I'd like to say that this category is stacked. There are tons of
Dude,
names that I want to talk about right now, and I'm just like, well, I can't sit here
yeah.
for 2 hours and talk about just this
Ariana was
category.
on
But
my list as well until I saw the
yeah,
Brutalist, and then I had to
Margaret.
rejig things around.
I haven't seen that one, but Margaret Qualley is easily one that I could have thrown on here. I almost changed Ariana off because I'm like, but I really want to talk about this other one. But here it is. Now to the other side, best supporting actor. Um, Saldana's been my number one since I saw Amelia Perez, so that didn't change. But I could have easily swapped out several for two or three. There are a lot. I had this three is locked in for me for actor. Like I don't think
Nice.
there's no one I want to like. I'm like no debating. These are my three favorite. Uh, my second runner up, and it's hard because I actually think he could easily also in another year would have been the winner. Yura Borisov from Anora. He is when he shows up in the movie, the movie like picks up. I was already enjoying the film. He shows up, and I'm like, "Who is this guy? I love
Yeah.
this guy." And throughout all of his scenes, I'm just like, I'm watching him. Doesn't matter what's going on, and he's not always the center of the scene, but if he's in a frame, my eye was drawn to him on purpose. I 100% Baker's doing it. He's like, if you're not watching him, watching her, you're missing what this movie is. And I was watching him. He nails it. He's just incredible. Um, First runner up for A Real Pain, Kieran Culkin. Here's the thing: people keep comparing him to his character in I don't even know what the show's called because I've
Severance,
never watched it.
Succession. He's
Succession.
in That's
Um,
it.
yeah, I haven't watched it, but the thing is, I don't think he's being his character from Succession. I just think that's Kieran Culkin. Like, I think that guy because that's when I watch it, I'm like, it's like a less obnoxious Wallace Wells because if you've seen Scott Pilgrim versus the World, that's where it starts. He is a snarky, he said, and watch his interviews on the press tour for A Real Pain. It's the same guy. He's like, he says things where you're like, you shouldn't say that. Like, I don't think that should be said out loud in that moment. And he's just that guy. And it's like, it's somehow he's both obnoxious and endearing at the same time, and easily could have been my number one except Clarence Macklin in Sing Sing said, "Get out of my way. Give me my trophy. You've never heard of me before, but you're never going to forget me after seeing this movie." And my God, Clarence Macklin at South by Southwest and in my rewatch was the clear, like, oh my God, how is this guy not famous? Because he is incredible. He gives such an authentic, real performance, and yet it doesn't feel like we're just watching some guy on camera. It's very clearly there's craft, there's talent, there's intentionality behind what he does and what he brings to the table. Easily, he's been my number one supporting actor since I saw Sing Sing. The only one who almost pushed him off was Kieran, but only because I happen to like that element of Kieran's personality. I find it very amusing. But Clarence Macklin elevates to a level that's like transcendent to me, and he's my winner.
That's a hell of a threesome there, John, if I could be
It's
so
so
bold
good.
as to say that.
Uh,
Can I top that? I don't know. My
I
second
wonder if
run
it's
up,
the
John,
same.
is Guy Pearce from The Brutalist,
It's not
who
the same. I haven't seen, so I can't even
it,
try.
yeah, I was wondering because it wasn't until you said you hadn't seen The Brutalist, and then it clicked. Like, we're not going to have the same, but I thought we might have done. In any other world similar to yours, Guy Pearce wins this because he is outstanding in The Brutalist. Like, I mean, I haven't seen every single film he's done since Memento, so it might not be a hot take, but that's the last film I saw of Guy Pearce where I thought this guy is gold. He's done great things since then, but if we want to make an obvious
He,
statement, like since Memento, this is
he's
like
in
his
like,
standout performance.
is he in Prometheus or is he in Covenant?
He
He's
is.
definitely in one of.
He's the main guy,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
main
He's
villain guy. Is he
right. I
Wayland or
just can't
Utani?
remember.
He's
He's
Wayland.
Utani or Wayland. He's one. He's
Yeah,
one of those. Yeah. And then
he's one of them. He's
Iron
heavily
Man
made up
3.
though. Yeah, okay. He's better here. No, he's fantastic here in this film. I really can't wait for you to see it. I hope you like the film, but if not, hopefully you enjoy Guy Pearce as this. You kind of think he's really nice, and then you realise actually no, he's an absolute. He's not. He's not. Watch the film; it's great. My first runner-up. Oh, it's tough. Clarence Macklin
Oh,
for a guy who, like you said, never heard of the guy. the guy who went through the same process that the film is telling us about, came out the other side and gave one of the best performances of the year as a debutant as well, against Coleman Domingo, of no less. Like you're saying of Ariana and Cynthia Erivo, obviously this is leagues apart because Clarence Mackling isn't an actor and Coleman Domingo is fantastic as an actor. You wouldn't tell the difference. The two of them are fantastic together, but Clarence Mackling is amazing in Sing Street. But he was edged out by
Sing.
your first. Yeah, Sing. Sorry. No, Sing. I knew I'd do it. Edged out by your first run up, John. Kieran Culkin for me was my best supporting actor because he's so charming, yet so infuriating.
Yes.
Yet so funny and upsetting at the same time. But you really get to feel for him.
Mm-hmm.
But you also understand his cousin, who is played by Jesse Eisenberg. You really understand why he would be frustrated because there was a few things he said during the film when I, as an English guy, was sitting there thinking, "Oh, you don't say that," and I go, "Oh no, now's not the time to say that," or I would be so embarrassed if I was there. Did you like that kind of like secondhand embarrassment? And I'd be the one sort of saying sorry to the tour guide, like, he doesn't mean it. But he's the focus of he makes himself the focus of every scene, not from some egotistical need to be the star, but because that's his character and that's who he is. He becomes the focus, and it doesn't downplay the rest of the cast because I actually think Eisenberg is really good here as well.
Yeah,
I think
I agree.
Jesse Eisenberg's great. But Kieran Culkin's the heart of the film, and he's got some really good dialogue. And he's got some really good scenes which he has to work through, some which are infuriating and some which are really emotional, especially when you realise what the film's about and what they're doing. He doesn't sing and dance like Zaldana, but he does still have a lot of emotion which he has to hit. He's got to be funny, but he's also got to be heart-wrenching in this film. And yeah, excellent performance from Kieran Culkin in A Real Pain. So almost synced up there, JB. But again, Macklin, Culkin, take your pick. Two brilliant performances.
Very good.
So that is the supporting. Let's get into the leads now. Let's start then with Best Actress, another category which I thought was pretty stacked when you kind of go through the list of them. However, I am pleased with the three that I have. And my second runner-up, now, I don't think the film was all that good. I thought the film was okay. But I thought Nicole Kidman in Baby Girl was really good. I thought she's really good in this film. I'm not going to go and say it's her best performance since when. She's Nicole Kidman. She's great. But she's really good in this again. Shows strength, shows vulnerability. It's a sexy film. It's an emotional film. Harris Dickinson's good as well. But I think she's just really good in this film. And it's really great to see Nicole Kidman on form like this. Similarly with my first runner-up, Demi Moore in The Substance.
Yeah.
Could have, in any other year, she wins this, John, because of everything I've just said about Nicole Kidman. In The Substance, Demi Moore, it's a vulnerable performance. What the film is telling us about women of her age and the way she is portraying this and has to do it and probably has gone through it herself. She is outstanding in this film, and I am going to say it's her best performance in years that I've seen anyway. Demi Moore in The Substance. I really wanted to give The Substance that love of giving it one of these from Quali or Demi Moore, but then along came Honora, John. And along came Honora. It's surprise, because I think everyone's talking about this. And I went into Honora for Sean Baker and for Mikey Madison because I really liked what I've seen of her in Scream 5 and whatever else she's been in. I've seen her in, but I was also a little bit worried because everyone was talking about Mikey Madison in Honora, John, and everyone's saying about how good she is, and you kind of think, no, she's obviously not going to be that good. But Mikey Madison is fantastic in Honora, and she is my winner of Best Actress. I found her performance to be incredibly nuanced in this film. She does loud very well. She does the "you can't do this" and "F off" in her Brooklyn accent very well. But she also has I'm using the V word again, a very vulnerable side. In the quieter moments, she's insane. The final sequences of Honora are what I would call powerhouse acting, where it brings it all home in that final scene. And she is the reason for that. Everything behind her eyes just comes out, and it's so emotional. And she's got a real presence. She really makes the film what it is. Borisov is great, but she really does make the film what it is. And the character also feels very lived in, due to Sean Baker, his writing and direction, but also her performance. She's a great dancer. She looks great in the film as well, which is never a bad thing. But just as a overall package and the surprise of it as well, Mikey Madison is probably a name that those outside of our circle maybe not overly au fait with, but as a surprise as well, I didn't expect Mikey Madison to be dropping such a powerful performance at this stage of her career, but she really does. So best actress for me is possibly the same for a lot of other people, is Mikey Madison in Anora. What about you though, John? What are your three? What are your two and your winner?
My second runner-up is Fernanda Torres from I'm Still Here. A good movie, a very good movie. But her performance is incredible. It is a true story of the military dictatorship in Brazil in the 1970s, and she is the matriarch of the family. When her husband is taken, um, she's kind of like there's just this it's so intense, it's so stressful, and she is everything's kind of like centered around her and her reaction to what's going on in the world she lives in. And it's such a powerful, strong performance, unforgettable in my opinion. First runner up is Marianne Jean Baptiste for Hard Truths, um, a character that is again uh, actively trying to be disliked. Like you're does things where you're just like, oh my god. But then to bring up the word you've just used, the vulnerability when she is vulnerable, when the scenes come where she has to let her guard down a little bit, and you see the humanity and the reasons behind what we're witnessing and why she's acting so horrible. It's a hard truth that you have to swallow, and it just really is effective and powerful, but not powerful enough to knock the number one off of its spot, and that's Mikey Madison for Honora, um, because she's hands down the most incredible performance this year. Because her character, as you said, does feel so lived in, but she her character is putting on a performance, right? Like the facade of her character is there. There's layers to that performance, and she's nailing both sides of it. You see like both feel authentic, but at the same time you can tell there's a guard up, there's a facade that she puts out to the world. And when the vulnerability comes in, man, it's just devastating at times because you see the real person that is trying to just get by. She's doing everything she can to survive, and Madison just nails every step of the journey. It's just an outside star making performance. Like this is going to be those things where she'll most likely win the Oscar, and then now in the future, it's like, what does she want to do next? And hopefully, she
Yeah,
makes great decisions. Um, I mean, I liked her in Scream, but if you told me like, hey, this character is not even the main character is going to be in a few years getting the best actress, I would be like, really? Like, what does she do? And
exactly.
then this, okay, wow, I had no idea this was in. I mean, you put anyone else in this performance, and it's can they do it? It's a lot to ask, and she crushes it every step of the way. So, Mikey Madison, easy winner for me, best actress of the year.
A BAMPie sweep there, John.
Yep. All right, let's go to the best actor award. Obviously, similar. There's a lot of competition this year. There's some names again that I'm like, man, should I have this person on the list? Should I have that person? There's so many great performances this year. Um, but my second runner up, and I probably could have not done this because I have the best cast already acknowledging Ghostlight, but Keith Cooper from Ghostlight, I his performance is insane, man. Like there's this he's so quiet for so many scenes, and then when he finally gets just he can't keep the emotion in anymore, and it breaks out. He's undeniable. He's such a force. I honestly, his daughter, whose name I do not remember, but she's also really great in the movie, and I could have easily have had her as like a supporting. But the movie is on his shoulders, and man, it's such a memorable performance. I feel for the guy so much. He even sells the idea that a person could be living in this world and not know the ending of Romeo and Juliet. Like I believe it when he says it. I'm like, anyone else, I don't buy that, but fine, I'll accept you, guy. Just incredible. My first runner up and could have been the winner, Sebastian Stan in A Different Man. I have not seen The Apprentice, but A Different Man, it's such a great performance. I've actually been a big Sebastian Stan fan. I think he doesn't get enough appreciation. He can do it all. I've seen him do dramas. I've seen him do comedies. Obviously, he's done a lot of action with the Marvel movies. I like him so much. He plays on his persona, which I love that. I love like Channing Tatum is an actor who won me over because you look at him, you're just like, oh, you're just a pretty face. But then he likes to mess with that. Stan has done that too throughout his career. The Bronze is a great example of it, and Fresh, where he just kind of plays
Ooh.
on that. Look at how handsome I am, and A Different Man, 100% is playing on that. That as well. It's playing on his looks, and it's just such a performance throughout the film. I was so blown away by that movie. That movie was one that I almost didn't even bother. I was like, maybe I'll get to it. I was so happy that I watched it. That movie really hit me harder than I was expecting. I was really impressed, and it's a lot. I mean, there's a lot in that film, but Stan is the breakout, but not enough to shelve the winner for me, which is Coleman Domingo for Sing Sing. I love Sing Sing. I there's probably a little bit of bias because Coleman was there and then literally flew to the Oscars for his Runyon nomination. So like, there's a part of me that just respects like how much he had to. He didn't have to be at South by. There were plenty of other
Mhm.
people from the movie there. He could have just like, no, it's the Oscars weekend. I got to be at. No, he was there. He was pushing this movie, and well, I've given Sing Sing the cast award. I gave Macklin the supporting. I can't deny Coleman, man. Like, the dude just owns this movie. He is so powerful when there's a tragedy that takes place, and it really like it breaks his character for a little bit. I think he sells that so believably, and it doesn't feel over the top. And yet there are moments that feel over the top, but he's an actor being an actor. Like, that's his thing. He's like a theater guy, and I just think it works so well to tell the story. Couldn't couldn't push him off the top for me. There's a lot of other great performances that I would love to give recognition to, but Coleman just stood out for me. So Coleman Domingo, my winner. Matt, what about you? Best actor?
I I could have put Sebastian Stan in for A Different Man or The Apprentice because I think he's really good as Donald Trump in that film. But my second runner-up is your winner is Coleman Domingo in Sing Sing. This was a year of just excellent performances from excellent actors, and I know that sounds wow, this is the best actor. Do you expect that? But actually, there's so many people who you would expect to bring their A game. For me, being Coleman Domingo, certainly over the last few years. But then there's someone like Sebastian Stan, who's a jack of all, and has suddenly again shown with two films this year that I know I can punch with the best of them. But he didn't land the knockout punch to get in the top three. Coleman Domingo is excellent in Sing Sing. Similarly, with Ray Fiennes in Conclave, who's my first runner up, in a much quieter performance for me, could have won. This is the same. This is the thing I've said in a few of the categories, but in any other year, Coleman Domingo wins for me or Ray Fiennes wins for me because they're both excellent in what they have to do. Domingo is he has to be more expressive in his role, whereas Ray Fiennes is it's not that he's any less expressive, but obviously given the character that he's portraying, there are ways in which he can express that.
Yeah.
Could have won in any other year, but for me, the winner of Best Actor is Adrian Brody in The Brutalist. Dude, this is a towering performance, and guess what I'm going to say? Quite easily his best performance in years, probably decades. And I'm not necessarily going to say, oh, The Pianist since then, but he's a funny one, Adrian Brody, because he's the youngest actor to ever win Best Actor for The Pianist. But he's never really taken off since then, not taken off. I think a lot of that is due to him, because I don't think he's the most PR friendly guy. But but then again, you look at someone like Kieran Culkin, and is he that different? Because what's it going to take for him to get his foot in hot water? But this is a true reminder of how good Adrian Brody can be. He plays Laszlo Toth, a Holocaust survivor who fled to the USA for a new start. He's an accomplished architect who finds work under Guy Pearce's Harrison Lee Van Buren. And he's a very stoic character, but he's anything but one-dimensional. It's a powerful performance. He's excellent with his emoting. His facial acting is superb. Obviously, his delivery of his lines in the accent of which he affects is very, very well done. But his screen persona, though, John, is magnetic. He really gets lost within this role. He brings a real depth to his performance, and it's less of a surprise to see Adrian Brody pull off a good role because we know he can do it. But it was just it was almost, again, similarly with Saldana, it was so satisfying seeing Adrian Brody, the guy from Predator, coming back and delivering this absolute knockout performance. I think this is one of the best performances I've seen in a long time. It's a long film as well, so he has an awful lot to do in this film, but he carries this film so well. It doesn't hurt that he's up with Felicity Jones and Guy Pearce as well. But honestly, such a incredible performance that when I'm watching this film, I'm not really noticing the runtime because I'm just interested in what this guy's up to, these setbacks he faces and chasing the American dream. And look, that dream said no thanks, but he still chases it. Excellent, excellent performance from Adrian Brody. If he doesn't win the big one in a few months' time, I will be shocked. But Ray Fiennes and Coleman Domingo are also in that category.
The one who we didn't mention who was almost in my list that I have to bring up is Timothée Chalamet for A Complete Unknown. I love that performance so much. And actually,
Didn't
while we're
love the
talking about
film.
that, I like the film a lot, but
Mhm.
mostly just because I knew very little about Bob Dylan, so I was just kind of on board for like all the music stuff.
They
But
made him almost like the antagonist, which I quite liked.
Monica Barbaro, I think I'm saying her
Yes,
name right, as Joan Baez.
Joan, yeah.
Uh, Easily also could have been in my supporting actress list. So
Great
like
shout.
those two, I didn't really mention that movie, but it's a movie that I think is deserving of a mention, and specifically because I think Chalamet will be in the running for the Oscars.
Yeah.
He easily could have been in my list here because I do think he is really great in that role. And it's a movie of a bunch of people staring at like, oh, look at Bob Dylan
What a
being
genius.
awe-inspiring.
Yeah.
And I was there going, I agree. I also didn't know that until this movie, but I'm watching like, oh wow.
It's a
And it's
great
Chalamet.
performance.
It is, yeah, just outstanding. So just wanted to throw that out there before we move into the next category.
Yeah, no, agreed, and I'll ape that as well. I didn't dislike A Complete Unknown. I just didn't love it. I think for me it's like 3.5 out of 5, which is still pretty good. But I think Chalamet he's great in that, and if he wins the Oscar this year, I'm pretty sure he would be the youngest ever actor to
Youngest,
win
he would be.
Best Actor, which is, hey, look, we've got that going. I think he's definitely in the running. He's great in it. Barbaro, who most people probably recognise from Top Gun Maverick the other year.
Yeah.
That's kind of her breakout there, but she's great in this. So yeah, it's a good shout. It is James Mangold directed that. Could have again Chalamet in any other year could have probably been in this one either of our top three, but it just goes to show what a good year it was for film. So let's get into our penultimate category then, Jon Berk, best director. We've gone through the performances, we've gone through what makes a film great behind the scenes, but what about the person who is running the entire show, the director? Okay, John, here we go. Second runner-up for me is somebody who, I really, really wanted this person to be the winner, but the other two were so good. But this is Coralie Faja for The Substance. I think she directs the living hell out of that film. And having seen her other film, Revenge, that was, again, she directed the hell out of that as well. But this is, I mean, the film is excellent as well. But the way she obviously gets the best out of her cast, the way she structures, the way she paces this, the way she presents it, leading up to the payoff at the end, or the double payoff at the end, like the final shot versus the first shot. Incredibly well directed film, and I really hope she gets more nods in the next few months. But it's, again, a stacked year when I have to consider that my first runner-up was Brady Corbett for The Brutalist, who also directed The
Okay.
Living Sin out of that film. It's one of the best directed films I've seen in a long time. Just for I mentioned about the cinematography, the VistaVision, the 70mm, the scope of this thing, the way it's shot, paced, and edited with an intermission as well. Sumptuous. But my winner, John, I feel we may be doubling up on this as well, but I don't want to be too presumptuous. But my winner of Best Director for 2024 is Sean Baker for Anora. He directed it. He also wrote it, produced it, and edited it as well. So he did an awful lot in this film, and I'm pretty sure there was more he did. He's a very hands-on director, anyone who knows Baker's work, but he directed the hell out of this film. As per usual, it's a very human film. I know lots of people say that, but Baker does focus in on the more human stories. He focuses very much on the characters, which is what makes Anora so good, because a lot of these characters, including Borisov's, Yuri Borisov's character, could just be a no-name or a tertiary character who's there to do this and this. In this film, he's brought to the forefront. He's made into a character. He's developed. He's fleshed out. I mentioned about the substance, but this film is structured very interestingly, and he gets the pacing right as well. The tone is extremely grounded. He's able to balance out the drama and the comedy very well, and the romance, because this starts as a rom-com essentially, he or romantic drama at least, but he's able to balance those out, and he gets fantastic performances from Borisov, from Madison, the rest of the cast. And obviously, just in terms of how the thing is put together as a whole, you're looking at composition, camera work, lighting, deciding what score to have as well, everything along those lines that makes a film director what he is. Sean Baker brought his A game with Anora, and again, he wrote it and edited it. So, in terms of an all around, I think Brady Corbett was by far an incredible choice for winning this. But then I look at Baker and think, well, he literally did everything. And look how good Anora was. So I had to give it for him. Very, very well deserved for me, Sean Baker, for Anora. John, who was your best director of the year and your Neelys?
So my second runner-up is Ramel Ross for Nickel Boys. It was such an ambitious movie, and stylistic wise to shoot it in the POV and how he does it and how effective it actually ends up being is impressive, because a lot of times when you have a gimmick like that, it overshadows the story, or it feels like it'd been better if you just made a regular movie. Like, why not just make it a regular movie? And it's so vital to the story that's being told. Especially, I went and listened to the book after seeing the movie, and it's such a really great example of adaptation. How he chooses to adapt the novel and make it work is impressive, and it's also, the cinematography is really strong, but just the general direction impressive. First runner up, I'm surprised actually that it wasn't in yours, is the Denis Villeneuve for Dune Part 2,
He was
only
winning the
because
whole time until recently.
I love Denis. I'm a big fan of his filmography, and so it's kind of more of like I think Dune Part 2 is great. I really did, but it's also like it feels so long ago, and I'm just not. I don't know what it is with those with that, like the Lord of the Rings movies and and Dune. I'm just like, I've seen it. I'm good. Like, I have no compulsion to go back to them, and I don't know what it is. I've watched Lynch's Dune twice, and I actually would be
What
more
is wrong
inclined
with
to
you?
watch that one. Like,
We're
but
not perfect. I get it.
I love Villeneuve. It's I think it's just with the length, man. It's just such a commitment to watch Dune Part
Yep.
2 and 1. And everyone who loves Lord of the Rings, they don't watch Lord of the Rings. They watch the extended editions, and like they were so long in the first place. So
Incredible,
I
John.
just but Denis, I think I would love to see him win, but unfortunately, I think it's not his year, because I think, like you, Sean Baker is my winner, and I think it's his time. I think he should have won for the Florida Project. I think that's his masterpiece. I think Anora is great. I think it showcases everything he does so well. It's probably a less accessible film in some ways, because of all of the gratuitous nudity at the beginning of it. I mean, there's literally a panning shot where you just see so much nudity. Like, it's just so much that it's going to turn some people away,
It
but
might
it's
turn some
so
of the
vital,
Academy voters off.
or on, I guess. But either way,
Christ.
uh, but it's so vital to the story that's being told. It's such an important part of it, and I never feel like it's exploitative. And that's something that um it's risky when you're telling these stories of vulnerable people, and you're making tons of money, and like those people who are the centerpiece of your story aren't getting the money. It's a very slippery slope that we do with all art, and unfortunately it just becomes more prevalent when that movie starts to get award recognition. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
this guy's going to get the recognition, but there's, you know, but that said, if we're talking about ability and craft and like intentionality, Baker exhibits it every step of the way. He is so clearly a filmmaker. There are some people who they point a camera, they work with everybody, they collaborate, and there's nothing wrong with a collaborator, but Baker is the filmmaker. He's an auteur in the truest sense of the word, and I think this movie showcases that craft so perfectly that he deserves to win. So, without any hesitation, Baker wins for best director.
Yeah. A second sweep for the Bampies then, my friend.
Now, before we get to our final category, and we're not going to list these here, but I think something that's worth noting, a lot of the movies we're talking about, you're going to hear about all over the place. You're going to hear about it in the Oscar talks. You're going to hear about it in the Globes. You're going to hear about it in the BAFTAs and other such awards throughout the time. But there are some incredible movies that we're not talking about here today, and there's some big movies that we're not talking about here. Like I mentioned, A Complete Unknown. It has not been on any of our lists here, but it's a huge movie and it's done
Yeah.
really well at the box office. And it's great. Again, I like it more than Matt, but it's a very watchable movie. I'm going to encourage. I have a full list of ranked every movie I saw from 2024. I almost said 2014. I wish 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But and there's some movies on there that just like glancing at my list, like My Old Ass. I was really blown away by that movie. That's a movie I don't think enough people have seen. I think it's on Prime now.
Mhm.
We've already mentioned like Look Back and Kneecap, two movies that you might have skipped that are now easy to see. His Three Daughters is a film that just really
Yep.
didn't get any promotion on Netflix's end, which Netflix is so bad about doing. And then there's like one movie that when I saw it, I thought for sure would be on my list with Love's Lies Bleeding,
I
which
was
is
going to
just
say that one.
incredible. And yet there's just so many good movies that came out that some of these films that I thought for sure I would be talking about all year got pushed back. And then some like Ghostlight, I've mentioned, with the cast and the acting that I just had to bring up multiple times. It's one of those things. So look at our list. Look past just us, but like there's so many great movies that I wish we could just
Dude.
sit and like shout for right now. Because it kills me when people don't see these excellent films. And I would love,
Yep.
love, love, love for more people to see some of these lesser known great movies. The two that we haven't mentioned, I'm going to mention real fast. Hundreds of Beavers.
Do you do like Hundreds of
Uh,
Beavers?
Dude, it's so funny. It's a throwback to Looney Tunes, the filmmaking style. It's the epitome of innovation. And then a similar kind of tone, one that's technically 2 years old, but it was officially released this year, is The People's Joker. Another trans
Yeah.
story that I think is really worth checking out. It's innovative. It's using techniques that often would be looked down upon, especially in Hollywood, because it's like they're using, clearly that's green screen, but it's used in a way that is for purpose and intent, and it just, you overlook it. And I love that kind of scrappy filmmaking, especially for all of you listeners out there who want to make a movie and think I don't have the money. No, Hundreds of
You're
Beavers
bang
and
on.
People's Joker, spot on examples of you don't need to have all the tools in order to tell your story. And that's what's important about film, is the sharing of stories and being able to put people into a perspective that maybe they wouldn't have otherwise. So
John,
soapbox, let's step down. But
well said
go
though,
ahead.
John. Well said. But just you mentioned Love Lies Bleeding, dude. Man, I love that film. And just to,
Yeah.
I'm not going to jump on that too much, but I mentioned a film like Civil War. And The Substance. Holy hell! I wanted, and it's not big. And listen, I'm in charge of my own destiny of what I pick, but I wanted those two films to be winning everything because they are incredible. I look at a film like Young Woman in the Sea, which I thought was really inspiring. A film like Abigail, which was just a blast. I mentioned the first Omen, Wicked. I think maybe Wicked for me. I could it have won more, maybe, but it was such a strong year. And yeah, look, because I've also got a list as well, top 20. We'll share them on our socials in the next few weeks as well, or snippets from at least. And so as to not ignore that, we're gonna go through our top five, but there are films which I were on the precipice. I mean, there's a film I watched the other night, last night, where I thought, oh, this needs to be in my top 20. It's 21 at the minute, but what do I take out because my top 20 is so good for me anyway. But anyway, John, enough of that. I always love JB up on that soapbox. You stand up there for as long as you need, but if you insist, let's do it. Top five.
So for our best picture, we're going to mix this up a little bit. We're going to go back and forth from like, so we'll both give our five, then our four, then our three, then our two, and then our best picture of the year. So my number five best picture of 2024 is A Different Man. As I mentioned, Sebastian Stan kicked his way onto my list, and also that movie. I was so into that film. I was just shocked more people weren't praising it and weren't getting into it. There is going to be a theme. A lot of my movies have some performance element built into the story. I don't know if you guys know this. I really love movies a whole lot. So a lot of times movies about movies or movies about theater or movies about the art end up really resonating with me, and that's no different. A Different Man, while it's a different take on that process, but I found that take to be so endlessly interesting. This kind of like snake eating its own tail kind of thing, where everything's kind of connected and back. I just was like, I had no idea this is what this movie was going to do, and I was really, really into it. Loved A Different Man.
Great shout, JB. Number 5 for me is an Irish horror film called Oddity, directed by and written and
Oh,
directed by Damien McCarthy. It won the Audience
wow.
Award at South by Southwest in the midnight section,
I
and
saw
it's
it there, and it was great.
you did.
Yeah,
And
I saw it
I
opening night.
you were the lucky one to see it at the crowd. I saw it at home. I got the screener for it, but it's a film that stayed with me for a long time. And as somebody who watches more horror than anything else throughout the year, by far, I'm always on the lookout for a horror that is not necessarily shocking in the gratuitous sense, but one that gets under your skin and stays there. And Oddity really, really did do that for me. It's about a blind shop. She's a blind medium who's a shopkeeper as well. She's getting over the death of her sister a few years ago, and a mannequin turns up with which is apparently going to have clues in it to get the murderer, uncover the identity of the murderer. That's all I can say. It is so atmospheric, so creepy, so taut, so tense. Again, Shudder. I'm not saying Shudder is the best place to watch horror films, but I'm telling you, Shudder's probably the best place to watch horror films, guys. They don't sponsor us, but sponsor us, please. Oddity was my surprise for number 5 this year, John.
You know, when I saw it, when the movie ended, the lights went out. When the lights came back up, the dummy was in the front of the theater.
Screw that.
Um, yeah, it was incredible, and we all got little face like fans, you know, like the kind of fan thing, little mask on a stick of
That's
the
cool.
creature. So it was such a cool experience. One I almost didn't go to, and I'm very glad that I did. Cool that it's in your top 5. My number 4, Best Picture 2024, is Robert Eggers' Nosferatu. I uh, I was very slow to become a fan of Eggers because The Witch just didn't do for me what it did for so many. I really need to go back and rewatch it. I feel like
Yes.
I definitely, as a film viewer, I have grown leaps and bounds since I saw The Witch. And I've also become a big fan of Eggers, and I think Nosferatu is just incredible. I was worried because, as we've talked about on our episode, this movie, the Dracula story slash Nosferatu story has often not worked for me. I really like how he executes it here. I think it's the best version of the story. I felt like I was most aware of what was going on. I think the thing that unlocks it is he focuses on the female character, and Lily Rose Depp is up to that task. And surprisingly, I wouldn't have thought, to be honest, when I forgot until recently, but Anya Taylor-Joy was originally going to be that role, and
Yeah.
I those were some big shoes to fill because Anya Taylor-Joy is incredible. Lily Rose Depp does hold her own, and I think makes a very memorable performance. And does some incredible acting, mind you. Like, not to take away from what she does at all, but I think Eggers choosing to like push that story through that character, which is the logical place that has maybe through sexism never been the logical like element.
Yeah.
It makes that story so much better. I think as a result, and I found it again visually gorgeous, uh, creepy. I love the kind of grounded take on the vampire story, how he blends reality and lore. I was really into it. I was excited because I was really hopeful for it,
Yeah.
and then it's for me, it stuck the landing. I know it hasn't for everybody else. This was like the opposite though. I was really hyped about Nosferatu, and it did. It lived up to my hope. So my number 4.
Great shout. Hopefully, the Academy finally choose sense and have another horror film in their best picture. 2, The Substance, and Nosferatu, hopefully. But, well, John, he didn't say Nosferatu. He said yes, Ferratu. Come on. That's his number 4. My number 4 of the year, John, is Sean Baker's Anora for all the reasons that we've already said. I'm not going to beat around the bush too much. I just think it's a fabulous film with great performances, shining like Sean Baker does, shining a light on kind of what he considers as like kind of minority divisions of society, and in this case, it's sex workers. But the way that it's handled is really well because, like you said, there are obviously they're talking about sex workers. We go to strip clubs. There are scenes in there that may turn people off, but it's done really well, and the cast and especially Mikey Madison did homework to make sure it was as well portrayed as possible and as authentic as possible. And she looks great in the role as well because of it. But I just think it's a really well told story. It goes a little bit bonkers, which I like. You know, it starts off as one thing, and then, like you said, when Borisov turns up, it almost becomes another thing. And then by the end, it pivots back to something else. And that final scene is just brilliant. Like the final performance from Mikey Madison is excellent in that, and that final scene really clinched it for me. I was like, yeah, I thought this film was great, but the finale is like, yeah, this has cinched it for me. This is a really strong film. So number 4 for me is Anora.
So that's back to me for my number 3. And it kind of has been on this spot since I saw it, which is Jesse Eisenberg's A Real Pain. I I was hopeful for this movie. I heard good buzz. I've liked Eisenberg for a long time, and I've also liked Kieran Culkin. Honestly, I didn't know it was Kieran Culkin when I used to watch Home Alone 1 and 2, but I always liked Fuller. I don't know how many times I've referenced the Fuller lines about, if he has another Pepsi, he'll wet the bed, that kind of junk. But Scott Pilgrim, he was my favorite element of Scott Pilgrim versus the World. I love Wallace Wells so much, and I was like, man, this is Macaulay Culkin's brother. He's so funny. And then I went and I saw Igby Goes Down, and I was like, man, I've been on the Kieran Culkin train. So when this movie was announced, I'm like, well, this sounds like my cup of tea. And I saw this with editor at Berk Reviews, and it's still helping me with Disappointment Media. David, we went together for the screening, and I think part of us, we saw each other on the screen, like our dynamic, the friendship that we've had over the 30 years that we've known each other.
Damn.
Like it really felt resonant. I felt very much like the train sequence in A Real Pain when he makes Jesse Eisenberg like basically hop a train illegally. That's something that David would make me do, and I would be the nervous wreck going, "We're gonna get caught." And so we were like, when that happened, I think we looked at each other like, "Yeah, this is us. This is 100% us." And
Mm.
and there's such a human story to the movie. Um, I found everything about it so compelling. I don't think Eisenberg gives us all of the answers, and I think there's a lot left to interpret, like the ending, especially. I've heard different reads on it. My read was much more hopeful than some other people's read on it, and I don't know if that's maybe because I'm like, well,
It could be you.
like it might be me, but I really liked The Real Pain a whole lot, and it's my number 3.
Good shout, JB. My number 3 is a film which you've mentioned previously. It's Kelly O'Sullivan and Alex Thompson's Ghostlight. Damn, did this film work for
Nice.
me? It was. We've said it before. We've got no shame. We're guys who cry at most films that we see. Probably pretty much every film we see. Probably even Garfield for John this year. But Ghostlight absolutely got me a few times throughout. The story itself, when you watch it, it's quite apparent what they're going for quite earlier on, but they still peel back the layers of the onion so well that when you get to the kind of the reveal of what the crux of the tragedy is, that it hits you still. And then they build and build and build upon that. And there's conflict throughout, the unspoken conflict, which leads into real conflict, which then has to resolve itself. And the way it does is so beautifully done. It's so touching, this film is, and it's excellently acted. And I didn't know until watching the film afterwards the fact that you said that the lead 3 are husband, wife, and daughter. Keith Kupferer is the father in the film. His wife is Catherine Mallon Kupferer, and Tara Mallon, who's their daughter in the film, is their daughter in real life as well. I had absolutely no idea about that. I love that they managed to bring that real dynamic to the film because they're all great together. But yeah, the Romeo and Juliet aspect of it, the tragedy, the hope, the actual, obviously the way he uses his pain and theatre to get through it, independent theatre no less, is excellently well done. And IFC have a habit sometimes of just dropping these absolutely incredible films like this, and it really is another example. So if you haven't seen Ghostlight, if you're able to watch it, please do. It is a really rewarding film, and if you're anything like me and John, bring a packet of tissues because there will be tears. But Ghostlight nearly took number 2, but it's number 3 for me this year.
It's a weird phrasing, Matt. Ghost Light took it number 2. So My number two best picture of the year, I've mentioned several times already, and some might have thought it would be my number one, but it's my number two. It's Sing Sing, directed by Greg Kodar. Obviously, we've already mentioned Coleman Domingo, Clarence Macklin, but Sean San Jose, Paul Raci, who was in a favorite movie of mine from a few years ago, The Sound of Metal, and getting a really good performance in this movie as well. And then I think I'm going to probably butcher some of these names, but I feel like I want to read a few of these names because these are, again, a lot of these guys are real graduates of the program at Sing Sing Prison. David Dapp Girardi, Patrick Premi Griffin, Mosey Eagle, James Biggie Williams, Sean Dino Johnson, Cornell Nate Alston, Camilo Carmine Lovaco, Dario Pena, Pedro Cotto, Miguel Valentin, John Adrian, JJ Velasquez. I'm gonna stop there. Oh no, John Divine G. Whitfield. I have to at least mention he's not in the movie much, but he is the guy that Coleman Domingo is playing in the movie. Um, I should have probably read their names for the best cast award, not for the best picture. But like, I wanted to give them their props because it's the collective. It's all of the guys giving this performance, sharing their story. It's if you believe that prison is meant to rehabilitate and not end somebody's existence in society, Sing Sing is the movie that shows the possibilities of that and the transformative properties of art, something that I've always believed in. I love getting to see it and not just see it with someone telling us a story that's fictional or that's adjacent to truth, but telling us a story that happened with the people that it happened to. These are living, breathing examples of the success that this type of program can have when you don't treat inmates as lost causes, when you believe in the possibility of change, the power that can happen, and the fact that it's through theater and performance and getting in touch with each other and their lives. It's touching, it's funny, it's heartbreaking. I mean, this movie does it all. It's so excellent, and hopefully A24 is re-releasing this next month. So if you haven't had a chance to see it, which is very likely, it's one of the most frustrating movies on this list this year because I think
Mhm.
out of all of the films, it's been the hardest for people to see because A24 is just dragging their feet with it. But
They
finally,
stink.
thanks to Coleman, well, they don't always, but for this movie, they're really doing a terrible job. Coleman and Clarence Macklin have been really on the press tour, doing incredible stuff. I think Vanity Fair has the actors on actors is it's Kieran Culkin and Coleman Domingo talking, and
Hell
it's
yeah.
such a fun, also stressful because Kieran says things where you're like you shouldn't say that, but it's Kieran. Um, and luckily, it looks like Sing Sing is going to get a big push, and I can't wait for everyone to finally see this movie because it's one I think everyone will find something great about it. And my rewatch only made sure that I was right with my first take that it is just a masterpiece of a movie, and I love 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 the story. But it's my number two. So, Matt, what's your number two?
We're in the silver medal spot here, John. My number two was my number one for the longest time, and it was the recipient, or its predecessor was the recipient of the award in 2022. My runner-up this year is Dune Part Two.
I was wondering.
I've absolutely loved Dune Part Two, possibly even more than the first one, which I gave full marks for. It took the first film and went bigger, and we know that bigger isn't always better. But in Dune Part Two's case, maybe it was. They traded out Jason Momoa, Duncan Idaho, for Austin Butler's like devilishly menacing villain. Austin Butler's incredible in this film. The Even like the color palette is expanded beyond just the fairly muted, the deliberately muted palette in Dune Part One. It goes even bigger in Part Two. The color palette leading up to this black or infrared black and white monochrome sequence as well. But the action is great. Zendaya gets a lot more to do here. Timothy Chalamet is fabulous as Lisanne Al-Gaib himself as Paul Atreides. His development and arc through the film leading to when they do Dune Messiah has been handled so well. I think visually it's stunning. I think the story is fantastic. We moan on the BAMP a lot, and I'm using the definite and not the rural we, both of us, about runtimes an awful lot. Sometimes we can be played by long runtimes in films because not all of them demand it or deserve it. Dune Part 2 demands and deserves it, and it works better for it. There's no way you film Dune Part 2 with an hour and 45 minutes. Does it hinder rewatchability? Maybe. For me, I think it's such a damn good film that I could rewatch it again. Would I rewatch it once a month religiously? Maybe not, because of the runtime. But I'm pumped for Dune Messiah, which Villeneuve has said is in early stages of production, which pretty much means he's written down the script on the back of a pamphlet. But I'm excited for that. But I thought it was going to be my number one, John, because everything about it for me is top tier filmmaking, and it's another genre classic from Villeneuve. But silver medal for me this year, John. So here we go.
Well, we're at the gold. We're at the top. What film stood? And sometimes a movie is on the list number one for a long, 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 long time, and something will push it off. We see it last minute, and other times you're there. It's there. You're like, man, am I just locking into this movie just because I saw it and that was my first instinct? And then you rewatch it, and you're like, nope, that's number one. And for me, that's Ghostlight. Um, it was from the second I saw it. It was a movie I almost didn't bother to see. I was like, almost like, what else can I see? Because Sean said you should see Ghostlight. And I'm like, yeah, I don't even know what that is. Like, it's not, the name doesn't really grab me. I had not seen Alex Thompson's other film at the time, which was actually I had seen only Rounding, which we watched together, not together, but we watched at Tribeca 2 years ago. I think at least. But I had not seen Saint Francis, which was the big movie that they had done together with Kelly O'Sullivan's the star in Saint Francis, and I had not seen it, so I wasn't like drawn for that reason, and I didn't really like Roundings that much, so I wasn't like, oh, I got to go see this next movie, and but I couldn't. There was nothing else that I was like, well, I want to see that instead, so I went kind of reluctantly, like shattered by the end of the movie. Like I was like devastated. The directors were there. They talked about it. I was like, wow, I love you guys. I watched St. Francis as soon as I could afterwards, which I also really like St. Francis a ton. But Ghostlight, I mean, it's everything for me because the mom's a teacher. It's about a young person dealing with something that no one seems to get, and no one's accepting her. And at first, she's so obnoxious and so hard. Like you're like, I hate this kid. And then, boy, does she win you over. And it's such a great young
Mhm.
performance that you're just really impressed. And then, as I said, with Keith Cooper, who is our main character, hands down, he's the lead in the film. It's him dealing with it, how he's interacting with the people around him, how he's brought in. There is a part where I was like really worried they were going to go one direction with the story, and they don't do that. And I was like, yes, that's perfect. Dolly, again, I've already mentioned the cast because the cast is incredible, but the storytelling and how they slowly reveal things, and there's just these emotional monologues. And again, Keith's character, so much of it is he's quiet. So when he finally does speak and when he finally opens up, it is huge. It's so great. And again, it's another movie that's about the transformative power of art. And I can't help but
Yeah.
admit I'm a sucker for that. And this one just hit so perfect. It was my favorite film of the festival. It's been my favorite film all year, and I was waiting, waiting, waiting. I bought it as soon as I could. As soon as it came out on digital, I bought it. Um, it's on AMC Plus. If you subscribe to AMC Plus, I actually think it's on IFC, which is included with AMC Plus. But you can, I think you can subscribe to IFC on its own. Um, I was excited to rewatch it, but I was also nervous because I was like, what if it doesn't live up to my memory? And it totally did. It completely. I was like, no, this is hands down my favorite film of the year. I have no hesitation putting this number one. My only hesitation is that if we were doing a group vote, Matt, is that not enough people have seen it to have a
Mhm.
chance of it being number one on a group list. But I really hope if you listen to this podcast, if you take any value in any of my recommendations, that you will seek this movie out, rent it, buy it, do a free subscription to AMC Plus. You know, check this movie out. Again, no, it will not necessarily work for everybody, but man, if it will work for you, this could be a favorite movie of yours all time. That's like I think Ghostlight is going to be in my top 100 kind of thing. Like it's just a great movie. So that's my number one.
Good shout. But no, I know exactly what direction you mean as well. Like, oh, they're not going to do that, are they? And they didn't. They brought everyone back together the way they should have done, and I was very pleased about that. But yeah, dear dude, Ghostlight's fantastic. I echo everything you say, and if you can check it out, please do because it's fantastic. It's got my vote. It's bronze medal for me of the year as well, JB. Out of
Yeah.
the hundreds that we've collectively seen, it's three for me, one for you. My number one, John, is a film which is absolutely not going to be for everybody, but it really is a cinephile's dream. The Brutalist is by far the best film of the year for me, from a technical standpoint, from a performance standpoint as well. Like, story wise is really good. As I've mentioned, it's the Hungarian Jewish architect who flees the World War II. He's a Holocaust survivor who flees the camps to seek the American dream, and he gets high highs and low lows along the way, and his everything that's happening with his wife and his niece as well. The way that Brady Corbett incorporates everything, and even I've mentioned he uses VistaVision, which is 35mm scanned up onto 70mm. It's broken into 2 acts. You've got a 15-minute intermission and an epilogue, but none of it feels showy. None of it feels like it's done to kind of look. Hey guys, look at this. We've got this film which looks like it could have been made years ago. It's not gimmicky. It adds to the experience of the film. It is an incredible looking film. It's a breathtaking film in many ways. It's 3 hours and 40 something minutes long. But here is the kicker. That runtime did not bother me. I can't believe I'm saying that for a guy who complains about a film which is 1 minute over 2 hours half the time. This runtime just didn't bother me because of the superb performances in the story. Like Brody, Jones, and Pierce, I wouldn't be surprised if they won all the big awards this year because they're that good. I don't think they will. I think Saldana might be locked for supporting, but Pierce is an outsider for best supporting actor. I think Brody is high chance he wins best actor at the Oscars, but he definitely did for me. But like I said, it is a cinephile's dream, the way that this is shot, the way it's well written, it's delectably shot, it's excellently performed. The throwbacks to bygone filmmaking, they're not a gimmick. They're worlds apart from that. In fact, the way the camera techniques and the devices that they utilize, Brady Corbett and Lowell Crawley, the cinematographer, to bring this to life, to make this a big, expansive, sprawling epic, are fantastic. See it on the biggest screen you can do, which is what I will say as well. It is a film about. I mean, we're talking about the Jewish experience in this day and age. I mean, that is enough reason for it not to be for everybody, but the film plays on that, in that, you know, the Jewish experience, that they can, even in their own community, they're the insider and the outsider. It plays upon that identity, trauma. There's a discriminatory side to it, but it isn't woke or whatever buzzwords people want to say. It's nothing like that. This is a real human story. Now, Laszlo Toth, the lead character played by Brody, is a fictional character, but it's a very real human story, and it's powerful. And it's also a lot about art and architecture as well. So in terms of how art and architecture can heal a soul, it kind of plays upon that. There's an excellent scene in this film where Adrian Brody's character is shown pictures of the buildings he's made and is in Budapest in Hungary, where he's from. And just that scene, like the acting in that, is just incredible. And that's about an hour into the film. It is a brilliant film, but I concede it may not work for everybody because of the subject matter, because of the length, because at times, you know, people might be waiting for that thing to happen. You know, that thing doesn't always happen. It's more, we're telling a story here. We're telling a human story. It's not necessarily about inciting moments to bring in the next act. It's one big story, and it's just fantastic. It's about humanity's flaws, perfections, imperfections, who we are as people. Man, it's just a damn good film. And it knocked Dune Part 2 off of the list. I don't think anything was going to knock Dune Part 2 off because it'd been number 1 since March, I think, when it came out. But the Brutalist did. And hey, look, it might not be for everybody. It was for me. I thought it was astonishingly good. And Adrian Brody is magnificent in this film. Now, does it win Best Picture? For me, it has to. But then there's so many films in it that could win. I mean, I could see Conclave winning this year, to be fair. But who knows? The Brutalist was extraordinary, I thought. So if you can check it, if you can stomach a long film, check it out. Even if you just see it once, hopefully you can see what I saw in it as well. But that's mine, John. John took the Ghostlight. I took the Brutalist. I've seen both of them, so I can confidently say 2 great films.
I can't wait to see The Brutalist. It's very high up on my list. I don't know if it's gonna get here. I will. We're going to include a link in the show notes to my letterbox list of all of the 2024 films. I am going to just keep adding as I catch some of those 2024 movies to that list. It won't change the BAMPie winner, but it could end up. It'd be crazy if I end up like Brutalist should have been one, but I would be surprised because Ghostlight really,
It
really
was
connected
great,
on a personal
Ghostlight.
level. That's it for the BAMPies, the 5th annual BAMPie Award. We've been talking for a little bit. I think this might be the longest BAMPies. I don't remember for sure.
Nearly.
It's up there. But we tried to trim it down. I think we were more concise on those early picks, but we added a few categories so that padded out a little bit. But folks, we love movies, and we look forward to this episode every year. Looking back at a year in cinema, and I got to say, 2024, a surprisingly great year of
Yeah.
movies. Like it's thin in some ways. We didn't have a lot of what we've had in the past. There's a lot less Marvel movies, even though there's 3 Sony Marvel movies. Madam Web is near the bottom of my list, just for the record.
How did that not get in?
But we will be back to start talking about 2025 movies next week, Matt. Our first official 2025 movie will be Den of Thieves 2, Pantera.
Whoa!
And these cowboys from hell are going to be there to discuss the new Gerard Butler and O'Shea Jackson Jr. film that we've all been clamoring for since 2019 was Den of Thieves, I
It's
think.
been a while now.
It's been a while. So of course we were waiting for that sequel. Here we go. In the meantime, follow us on socials because we're going to be posting our top 20. You've only heard our top 5 movies. And while we might have talked about some of those others, there's a few on my list that I did not get to talk about that are in my top 20. You can follow us on Instagram, Threads, or TikTok at Bloody Awesome Movie Pod. And Matt, where can they find us on Blue Sky and Letterboxd?
You can find us at BAMP_podcast, BAMP_podcast.
And we're still on old Facebook. Search Bloody Awesome Movie Podcast. This particular time is irrelevant, but we are a Rotten Tomato approved podcast. We won't be voting on any specific movies for this episode, but we will be talking about Den of Thieves 2, Pantera, that they've given 0 screening to. So I'm sure that's a good sign
Oh, yeah.
that critics are going to love that movie. Although sometimes those Gerard Butler movies just hit. So you know
Plane
what?
was fun.
We'll have to. I still haven't seen Plane, but I've heard that. So, individually, you can follow my writing at Disappointment Media. Berk Reviews still exists, but again, I'm not posting there as of now. But on socials, I am still at Berk Reviews because that is me and that's what I do. Berk Reviews on all those Instagrams, Letterboxd, etc. Matt, where can they find you?
Go to whatiwatchtonight.co.uk and just search What I Watched Tonight across all of the socials, including Letterboxd.
And if you like what we're doing here at the Bloody Awesome Movie Podcast, especially if you really like our BAMPie Awards, we ask that you give us that 5-star rating on whatever podcast catcher you listen to. It helps people find the show. And if you're watching this on YouTube, good on you, because I've never watched a 2-hour YouTube video before. But give us that thumbs up. Maybe hit the
Please.
little notification button. We don't post a lot of videos to YouTube, but we do the BAMPies pretty much the last 2 years. I think we've done it on YouTube.
I think so.
So we hope to continue doing that. It is a time consuming effort on our part because we're not video editors. We're more video watchers. So
Yeah.
that said, we encourage you to keep watching movies
and stay bloody awesome.
Bloody awesome! Bloody